Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another epic round of entertaining racing action in the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 12 as brought to you on the premier SimRacing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right folks, we're back live from circuit side for another round of rapid fire racing action, and where exactly have we made our way to today for round number 4 of 10? Well, we can fill you in straight away because we have made our way to Japan for the Fuji International Speedway. Located in the Shizuoka prefecture of the country, this circuit has been a staple of national and international motorsport since its opening all the many best parts of what is 7 decades ago. And its core is a circuit that's not to be trifled with because it does have a wide array of corners, 16 in total, and a very long start-finish straight, almost the best part of a mile. To be precise, 0.917 miles and almost the best part of 1.4 kilometres. It means it's an interesting contraster circuit, where the long straight means that you need the ultimate top speed. But of course, well, wide array of corners which range from sweepers through to hairpins and chicanes, you also need a car that's going to be delicate through the bends and able to take them at full tilt. So you've got to find a balance, or you've got to make a sacrifice. Do you go for a straight line speed, or do you go for coring and ability, or somewhere in between? And those who get it right may just come out alright, and those who do not may flop and fall behind. And that's why you consider the effects of rain. And indeed, this being the home of the first ever Japanese Grand Prix in 1976, the infamous year the battle between Hunt and Lauda then was separated in absolutely incredulous conditions. Well, this circuit definitely is no stranger to rain. Located in the foothills of Mount Fuji, if it's going to rain, it's going to come down hard, and that's what we're going to see today most likely as our drivers take on this circuit and look to give it their all. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune tonight and catch all the racing action from the Superstar Split. We normally do have 2 broadcasts in parallel. One for the Masters split of the Thursday GT3 Championship and one for the Superstars. Unfortunately, due to him being on holiday, but a well-deserved holiday at that, Raz Harper is not available this evening to be covering the Masters. But don't fret, we'll bring you that live as if it were live from circuit side on Saturday, the 25th of April 2026. So you just got to wait a couple more days for that, and I'll be covering that on the behalf of Chaz. But here you are today, then tune in to the Superstar Split live from circuit side, and in the content booth you have myself. My name's Paul Walsh. You're catching all this racing action on the one and only SimRacing International YouTube channel, and why not subscribe today in order to stay up to date with all the latest broadcasted action from all of our weekly series. And to do so, all you got to do is make sure you're on the YouTube channel that goes youtube.com and search for SimRacing International SRI and drop us a subscribe, and that way you don't stay out of touch. But as we get ready to go racing, well, of course, we've got another 60 minutes of racing action for our superstars. But before we come to the racing action in the qualifying session, let's bring you up to speed with the story so far after 3 rounds of racing, and particularly the big headline stories from our previous round at Mugello. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to it. And as we can see, as we continue to march through our calendar, it is the 23rd of April today. Last time out, we were in Italy on the 16th of April at the Mugello Grand Prix circuit. What exactly did we get to see there in our Superstars class? Well, we got to see contrasting fortunes for many a driver, but the main theme of the race was we had 46 drivers on the grid and dry conditions throughout. It was a sunny day in Mugello with a little bit of cloud, and then we had prime conditions for racing at the motorcycle racing circuit that's also a GT circuit. And it was expected to be a bit of a processional race, given the nature of the circuit with sweeping bends and no real interruption, only one long straight. But it was very far from it, with overtakes literally dripping out of every single lap. Qualifying was an extremely tight session, whereby we had second through to 20 seconds, separated by less than a single second, although our pole sitter of Milton Tomlinson-Dennis was able to stand ahead of the field by almost 0.3 of a second ahead of Brandon Dyer. So therefore, the theme would be that we would have a pro and overall winner who seemed quite untouchable. At least that's what qualifying would say. But in the race, where it was initially under pressure was Tomlinson-Dennis from Dyer, but after the pressure initially on the open lap, we saw that Brandon Dyer was gradually being gapped, and a subsequent spin on lap number 24 for him, just after his pit stop, after completing his first lap on the pit stop, so he retired from the race, and then all the pressure was of Tomlinson-Dennis for the pro and overall win. Meanwhile, in the inter-class, well, the big theme in our inter and club classes was the fact that we did have a major set of incidents through turns 4 and 5 in the open lap, and it served to shake up the field in the back end of the pro class, but also towards the front and in the mid-pack of both our inter and club classes. And we saw Kyle Roy in the end benefit from the madness and also keep his cool and make sense of it all to be able to take the interclass win. And there's been a trend. He's kept the wins in the Scottish countryman, no doubt about it, and the fact that Jared Love had taken the first 2 wins of the season, the Scotsman, and Kyle Roy picked up the slack for his fellow countryman and made sure that it stays Scottish all the way through in the interclass at the moment. But when he qualified in 4th place, almost 4 tenths off the pole time set by Jared Love, it did not seem as though he'd been able to deliver the laps he wanted in qualifying. He had a lot more time in him when we did go green flag racing. And they gained massively from the open lap instance, whereby, unfortunately, it all went a bit wrong for Jared Love by comparison, and in the end, Kyle Roy had already leapt his way all the way up to second place. However, he needed to chase down Villa Cawte, and he was able to jump Cawte in the pit stops through better fuel saving, and was granted the breathing room he needed to be able to win the race when Cawte made a major error on lap number 27, and he was able to manage the gap to the SimRacing collector driver Bobby Moss to make sure in the end he was the one who'd be able to bring it on home, having switched from the Corvette to the Aston Martin, and Kyle Roy was rewarded with it. Then in the club class, we saw Steve Hughes. He surprised everybody by taking second place in qualifying and stealing the win from everybody as well. But what exactly was the story behind it, where he was second to Arno Progd in qualifying, but Arno Progd looked to be absolutely dominant in qualifying. He looked indomitable with a pole time that was 7/10 faster. But we had several club drivers right behind Steve Hughes as well, so the thought was going to be that Progd would run away with the result, and Hughes had to keep the army at bay if he wanted to take second place. But in the race, well, we did see early on, Hughes did fall back behind Adam Lynch on the open lap, and he had to fend off Denny Ploger, whilst Arno Progd was close behind the trio in the fact that he had a major set of errors on the opening couple of laps, and Progd was relegated back behind the top three in the club class. And so gradually Hughes established himself in second, breaking away from Denny Ploger, and here was just a gambit of chasing down Adam Lynch, which he did so through a massive amount of fuel save, and he was able to leap ahead of him, jumping into lead through the pit stops, and then never looked back, holding him off by 2 seconds to the finish, and that's how Steve Hughes took his win at Mugello and his first win of the club class for the season. But here we are today then for the Fuji International Speedway, a 1-hour race with wet weather conditions expected. We've already seen some rain in the background going into qualifying. It literally arrived as we transitioned into qualifying. Indeed, we've got the wet weather tyres out there, and indeed this is a wet qualifying session as it's been declared, and I suspect we'll see the rain come and go over the race today, and it's going to be a very interesting fourth round of the championship. But as we make our way into this round, we told you who the winners were from last time out. We haven't told you how the standings stand. Good thing then, we can bring you up to speed with them now. And we begin then with our Pro Class Championship standings. And as we can see here, our top 12 Pro drivers begin at Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. 3 wins on the bounce. And right now, the confidence is there, and his win streak is looking absolutely infallible. He was kept honest for the majority of the first stint, but to be fair, everyone's still got to find a couple of attempts in order to be able to slow the SimRacing Racing driver down. Raz Harper sits in second place. He started third at Magello and finished 5th, and after a good qualifying session, he was shuffled down the order in the open lap like a pack of cards, all the way down to 10th overall, and then had to recover for the rest of the race. But he did a good job recovering to finish inside the top 5 and secure some valuable points, but he knows he's got to get on top of his performances, particularly as race starts, if he wants to try and chase down the championship leader. Elliot Cawte, Harper's teammate for DDK Racing team, he was able to finish 4th in the end, and he had the better start of the two of them, make his way forward after starting in 12th place. He had a very poor qualifying session and did not benefit from the incident on lap number 1, so therefore he had to do things the hard way, but showed when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and definitely Elliot Cawte is a tough man out on circuit to beat, as he proved last time out. Ben Woodgate took to the podium for the first time this season at Magello for the Inter Racing team. He sits in 4th for the best part there of 24 points behind the top 3. He's only ahead of Richard Simnor by 6 points, with Simnor picking up his first podium of the season, and what a delicate race it was, and the Corvette driver made sure not to put a single foot wrong over the race distance, and in the end was rewarded for his consistency. He looked absolutely brilliant, and he managed to keep Woodgate behind all the way to the very end. From the DCW Racing drive, it's then a further 12 points to Brandon Dyer, a non-finish when he was comfortably running in second, but a major incident for him spoiled his opportunity to take that, what was the second place, or at least be on that podium, if you will, and it was all in the second half of the race where it went wrong for the Altitude Frame esports driver. Nils Bakage sits in 7th meanwhile, and right now his game plan for NJB Performance was not to retire from the race at Mugello, but that's what happened to him sadly, caught up in a major shunt of his own, and indeed the German driver sadly having to relegate himself out of the race. So he's ahead of US Peters Veem by the best part there of what is 30 points, and right now the Privateer 9 has a bit more work to do for him as well, not being on the grid last time out, and Charlie Walker inches closer and is only behind now based on result countback. And then do you see Corey Price in 10th place there for Darkwing Racing, round off that top 10 on 90 points. He's 4 ahead of Justin Hembry, and Leon Seeley completes the standings, and the Samantha Racing driver wasn't on the grid last time out, but we hope to see him back today. Coming into the Interclass then, and here we can see for your second tier of races, Jared Love, whose win streak has come to an end, but his time at the top has not. 2 firsts and a 4th. Magello definitely was not the day he expected after taking that brilliant pole position by almost 2 attempts, but the open lap incident sent him backwards, and then he recovered all the way from the back of the field to finish 4th. It definitely was a determined drive, and it was a drive that champions are made of. He fought hard at the very end of the race for third place in class versus Villa Kotonen, but Kotonen was able to hold him off at the finish line, and therefore Love had to settle for that fourth place. Kyle Roy then has picked up some momentum. He's leapt up to second place, and he had a much more settled drive in dry conditions compared to the wet we saw the week before at Spa-Francorchamps. So could that be the Achilles heel of the Axis Sim Sports with SimWorks driver, or will he be able to prove us wrong today after taking his win? He's on 220 points, 2 ahead of Villa Kotonen, and the Beowulf Racing Team driver will be wondering what exactly did go wrong, and what it was just putting a tyre wide at one of the many corners at Mugello that sent him around for the Beowulf Racing Team when he was in command of the lead of the race. And unfortunately for the Flying Finn, he's now got it all to do again, but he did pick up his first podium, but knows it could have been a win that went astray. Brad Pickett sits in fourth place there, and the Clark St James Dexterous Motorsports driver ran off the top 5 last time out, and on 210 points, well, he's the best part now. 50 points ahead of Nicholas Carlson, and the Beowulf Racing Team driver at one point looking to try and make it a 1-2 of Villa Kotonen, but had to retire from the race due to a huge incident, and we'll see his Mercedes back today, but of course he does commit round number 3 as a drop score. Bobby Moss taking his first podium. The results are moving forward, and the SimRacing Collector's driver in his Porsche definitely looked absolutely compliant over the distance at Magello, but he couldn't quite catch up to Roy, even though he looked very quick towards the end of the first stint, but we found out that Kyle Roy was holding a little bit in reserve, and therefore Moss could not put the pressure on him. Sam Hockley sits behind only based on result count at the Britain, and indeed didn't get too much camera time last time out, but he delivered a considerable race for what was a spot in the top 10, ahead of Adam Smith there on 144 points, and Ross Young, who sits a further 30 behind. From the Clark St James, a weird Dexterous Motorsports driver, he does have a gap there to the best part of what is 26 points to Steve Kershaw, and right now the privateer completing that top 10, head of Luke Van Gertel and Adrian Howard. Then we come to the club class, last spot by no means least, and here we can see in the club standings, it's Adam Lynch, 2 seconds and a first, and indeed he's had a second last time out at Magello, and his story was one whereby and then he qualified only 200ths behind your second place starter of Steve Hughes. He started third in the race, and his open laps he was able to get past both Hughes and Prague for the lead. So how exactly did he lose the lead, I hear you ask? Well, it was, of course, as we mentioned only months ago, Steve Hughes' absolutely incredible strategic fuel saving that enabled Hughes to jump back ahead, and Adam Lynch in the end had to settle for second. But he looked very strong. The only weakness seems to be that he's not perhaps ready for the surprises that rivals can bring to him. But to be fair, I think he's learned from what happened with Steve Hughes last time out, and now he'll know that he's got to be ready for some strategic masterclasses to come his way, if not pull off some of his own. But from the English driver to the Briton of Jack Giles, the gap there's the best part of 66 points, and the Enduro Titans driver there absolutely looking good as he moves forward right now, and indeed moving that fourth place, he's now 4 points ahead of Ashley Shucksmith. Speaking of which, after his second place at Spa-Francorchamps, was not able to repeat it last time out, and took 7th instead, but still keep your eyes out for him because he started 13th, finished 7th, and his struggles in qualifying were mitigated by a better race performance, but he needs to get on top of his qualifying points as quickly as he can. Steve Hughes has moved to 4th then, 160 points, 50 behind the top 3, but still 16 ahead of 5th place man Arne Prague, and we do see the MJK Sim Racing driver there after what's looking to be a comfortable day for him based on qualifying. It all went very backwards in the race, and he'll be hoping that today he can go forwards. Christoph Petty's 4 points behind the privateer ahead of Rob Gregg, and the Moonshiners Racing Club driver continues to impress with top 10 finishes on a run at the moment. And then we do have Denny Ploger in 8th place there with that first podium of the season, moving him into the top 10 quite firmly as he's 4 points ahead of James Fraser. Behind the Moonshiners Racing Club drives then Dwayne Hoffman for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, and in his own words coming into this round, well, given the fact that Lamborghini Huracan Evo is one of those cars that's not exactly the most popular of cars, well, Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport are living the dream with it. And I'll tell you one thing for Dwayne Hoffman, he's given me the quote today to say, with regards to how he's feeling with regards to the Lamborghinis for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, the quote is, "You're outmanned, you're outgunned, you're out-equipped, so what else have you got?" And to that, Dwayne Hoffman says, "We've got guile." And that is exactly why he's in that car, and he'll be trying to make sure he stays inside the top 10 today, given the fact he's only 6 points ahead of Philip Harris, whose retirement last time out has moved him outside the top 10. Jordan Butler sits in 12th place, and that completes your top 12 in the club championship standings. And then we come to the teams, lastly, and here we can see DDK Racing Team. They sit at the top, and they are now the best part of 46 points ahead compared to their closest rivals of Glass Tech Racing. Now, Glass Tech Racing had a phenomenal round last time out. They managed to bring on home a huge haul of points, and that's leapt them all the way from 11th to 2nd. And right now, the momentum is definitely with them. But of course, we have a very tight set of standings at the moment. We've only been 4 points to Axis Sim Sports with Sim Coach. We then do have Vulcan Motorsports ahead of their sister team of Vulcan Motorsports Gold, with the former moving from 9th to 4th, and the latter moving down from 2nd to 5th. They had a very tough round in Vulcan Motorsports Gold. It all went very wrong for them in Masters, and they'll be hoping to right those wrongs today. Samantha Town Racing, with Milton Tomlinson-Dennis being their only driver on the grid at Mugello. It does mean they have slipped slightly and dropped from 5th to 6th, but to be fair, the win for Tomlinson-Dennis has kept them very much afloat, 2 points ahead of both Beowulf Racing Team and LS Racing. Then we do have Darkwing Racing having moved from 10th to 9th, but they've still got some work to do. And then we do see Eurotitans Endurance in 10th place there on 364 points. They've dropped from 7th to 10th, and they're at risk of falling outside the top 10 because only 16 points behind them are iRacing Sport with SimWorks and also DXT Motorsports Thunder. So that's how the team standing stand, and let's tell you a little bit about our circuit for today. It's, of course, the Fuji International Speedway. We're racing at the Grand Prix layout, and it's located near the town of Oyama in the Sunto district of the Shizuoka Prefecture of Japan. 2.83 miles in length, or 4.55 kilometers. What never changes is the number of corners, 16 of them in total, and many of these corners household names in Japan, if not around the world. As our drivers roar the way down the start-finish straight, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just the brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track mats contained within it, they'll find that they'll very quickly emerge at a hairpin at the best part of 160 plus miles an hour. Hard on the brakes still go, and out of that will be for the Kinker 2, and in towards Coca-Cola corner, turn number 3. It's a downhill off-camber left-hander, which gives way to a sweeping downhill into uphill double right-hander of 100R at turns 4 and 5. Get it right through there, you've got to very quickly get the car over to the right-hand side for turn number 6 at the hairpin, for making your way from a downhill braking zone to an uphill run, and then downhill they'll go for turn 7, 8, 9, 300R, and break the way into Dunlop corner hairpin at turn number 10. Hard on the brakes they'll go through the chicane of turns 11 and 12, and it's uphill very aggressively as they make the way through the blind apex of turn number 13, and then through the very tricky and easy to get it wrong at Nets Bend at turns 14 and 15, where it's a very sharp left-hand right-angle corner, which is completely blind at the summit, and they'll make the way just a little bit further upwards to Panasonic corner at turn number 16, the corner of about 4 or 5 different racing lines, and it's going to be a drag race to the finish line or to go on to next lap. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we make our way to circuit side, and as we come back to the circuit, well, the good news is we have got 15 minutes of qualifying left. The rain seems to have gone away, and therefore could we see some drive start to improve in terms of lap times. Now, we do have a few drivers who have made the way back out into the slick tyre, it should be pointed out. We've also got quite a few drivers out there right now what is the wet compound as well, and you can see that prominent dry line, and we are expecting the rain today to be quite spotty compared to what it has been in other rounds, so therefore this could definitely throw our drivers for a bit of a loop. But as we do say hello to a few of you in the YouTube chat, and don't be shy, feel free to say hi, as we do say hello to Martin Brandon, who wishes the best of luck to everyone, and we also say hello there to none other than Soviet Skeek, who always is cheering on a Beowulf Racing Team, and well, good evening to you, good sir. And speaking of the Beowulf Racing Team, well, right now they are looking very quick in this qualifying session, because Villa Katonen is currently the second fastest in the interclass, and Nicholas Carlson is currently the fastest in the class, and they are 7th and 5th respectively, and Carlson right now doing very well. But to be fair, I think we're going to see a bit of a jumbling of the order here, because we do have Philip Harris, he's currently your club pole sitter, in 4th place overall. And do keep in mind, with many of these qualifying sessions where the rain comes just at the start of it, you know, when you get 1 or 2 drivers who go straight out there on a dry tyre and try to put the best possible lap in they can with their first flying lap, and then they come into the pit lane, put the wets on, and after that, it's really just a wet practice session. Whereas other drivers, if they don't get it together, they have to qualify in the wet tyre, and naturally it does have a lot less pace in it. But we'll have to see what our drivers can do now as they wind themselves up to another lap. But this could be one of those qualifying sessions where everything's going to turn at the last possible moment, and if so, well, it's definitely going to have to keep our drivers on their toes. But we can confirm the light rain has gone away in qualifying. We do have sunny skies right now, but we are expecting rain to return early on in the race, and then there potentially to be a bit of a dry period, and towards the end of the race, we will see the rain come back again. So it is definitely going to be on and off style rain here today, and that could prove very challenging, but it's not to be unexpected here at the Fuji circuit, given its location, its high altitude location near Mount Fuji, and indeed rain definitely does blight this circuit. What else do you need to know about the Fuji circuit if you want a little bit of trivia about it? Because I know there's a few of you there who love your trivia. Well, if you didn't know, this circuit was originally owned by Mitsubishi Motors, and it was bought out by the Toyota Motor Corporation. And this was the birth ground of the infamous F badge that you do see on Lexus machinery. So, if you are wondering, the ISF, the original sports V8 sedan by Lexus, it was born at this very circuit, and the running story is that essentially a number of Lexus engineers decided in their own time, after they'd made an IS250 back in 2007, they said, what if we decide to stick a V8 engine in the car? They put it in the front, and they took it around the circuit in their spare time, and the head of Lexus came down and said, what exactly are you doing? And they panicked a little bit, and he said, no, I like that, let's turn that into a car. And that's how the ISF was born, and that's how the F moniker for Lexus was born here back in 2007, and it was all because a number of engineers decided, what if we bolted a 5-litre V8 into the front of an IS250? Of course, they had to elongate the body to do so, but that's where it all began, and this has since then been the testing ground for the likes of the GSF, the RCF, the infamous GT3 machine that's still racing in real world, although it will be retired soon in the favour of the Toyota Lexus GR Concept GT3. Indeed, that car stood the test of time. It's been one of the oldest and longest running GT3s. And that car, much like all the other F models, born and raised here. But we've also seen the birth of plenty of brilliant racing action around this circuit. And as Stephen Kershaw makes his way on to another lap, we're about to get you a flying lap on board with one of our drivers, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry about that. And who's it going to be with today? We're going to jump on board with Leighton Austin as he takes us around for a flying lap of the Fuji International Speedway's Grand Prix circuit. He's making his way down the start-finish straight and heading towards turn number 1. And as he does so here, building up the speed as he gets ready to go into the braking zone. And as he does, we're coming all the way down and rolling his way in towards turn number 1. And we're just taking it nice and easy there. He is on the slick tyre at the moment, so he's got to be a little bit careful with the fact that he won't have as much traction as he perhaps would expect to have as he now follows the dry line up towards turn number 3. Into Coca-Cola bend and braking, not touching the curb on the right-hand side. Braking about 125 meters from corner apex. Normally in the dry, they will go much later than that. And now rolling his way down through 100R. Coming through the double right apex, and as he makes his way up the hill, just making sure he doesn't understeer too wide. He needs to follow the dry line as much as possible, as the water will roll down the hill and try to obscure it. And onto the brakes he goes, 150 meters from corner apex, but goes straight on there at the hairpin, and decides he doesn't want to go any further this lap. He's going to tow back to the pit lane, as meanwhile Richard Simnor goes on to another lap. Now I should give a shout out and to Darren Thacker as well, because of course Chad's not able to provide the broadcast for the Masters today, and unfortunately Darren not available to join me in the commentary booth here for the Superstars. He was planning to, but something's come up at short notice, but don't worry, always okay with him. It's just a bit of a personal matter he needs to attend to, and well, it's absolutely great to have Darren joining me for our coverage of the Masters last week. And indeed, he'll be back with Chaz as of next week when they do cover the Masters live. So don't you worry, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just be doing a post-round broadcast of the Masters for this week. That'll be on Saturday, as I mentioned earlier on, but I shall have Chaz and Darren back for the brilliant duo, and they'll be covering your Masters racing action from round number 5 onwards for a while. But I do believe we have one more post-round broadcast lined up later on in the season. But going back to where we are now, we do see there Fenikisto saying fingers crossed for a 1-2 Beowulf finish, and right now it's definitely looking good, although Luke van Gertel is closing the gap to them, as we are starting to see drivers making their way onto the slick tyre. More and more in confidence are going onto that slick tyre, and I suspect right now this circuit is going to rubber in quite quickly and start to dry up on the racing line quite quickly. This could be one of those qualifying sessions where Sunny all does turn, and it's all about who exactly can get up there. And when you do have some very big names in our classes, currently a long way down the order, and one of those big names is Arno Bruggt in the club class, who right now is all the way down in 37th, or what is 8th in club. That's not where he wants to be whatsoever. Nor does Nils Bakage, who right now all the way down in 36th, 16th of your pro drivers. And that goes to show you what these conditions are doing as he makes his way onto an outlap in his Lamborghini, and he'll be hoping perhaps he can push a little bit further forward. And also one of the big names in the interclass, who's having a bit of difficulty at the moment, well, it is none other than Ross Young, and one of the McLaren 720S Evo driver, only down in 10th place into at the moment and 26th overall. This will not do, the team will say, and he'll be saying that to himself. He knows he's got a bit more work to do, and the same can be said for both Jared Love and Carl Roy. Jared Love gets it wrong out of turn 1, runs too wide there, and the car spears its way towards the barrier. He'll tow to the pit lane immediately, and well, he's currently 7th in the interclass, and Carl Roy is 6th in the class. So the two Scotsmen, in fact, all three of the Scotsmen, not quite on the pace right now, but they're hoping to move forward and take on the Nordic drivers as soon as they possibly can. But we now jump on board with Carl Roy to pick up the pieces which were left behind by Leighton Austin as he makes his way through the hairpin for that on-board lap. As he comes out in the Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo, he now makes his way all the way down towards the hairpin through 300R, and here you can see flat out every step of the way here. We can entirely flat out in the wet and the dry, and now getting ready to go onto the brakes. So the Dunlop hairpin, braking it under the gantry, 150 meters from corner apex down to first gear. Let's go roll a little bit deep, and as to unset the car, and I think they're understeer creeping in and decides to take to the escape road. So Carl Roy struggling, a lot of them struggling. Now, one other thing we do need to point out here today, we have a new balance of performance for our GT3 machines coming into this round. So indeed, right now we've got wet weather, and we've got a whole new BOP, as it's abbreviated to. And what does that exactly mean for the uninitiated? Well, all these cars, they are restricted. They do have certain weight limits on them. They also have certain power limits and fuel capacity limits. So therefore, it does mean it's to try and equalise these cars. Can you imagine these GT3s, if they were unrestricted, they would have engine output, as we do see they're a bit of sideways moan. I believe that may have been Ashley Koopman going very sideways, but otherwise they would have power outputs. somewhere between 650 to 750 brake horsepower at the wheels, particularly rear wheels, because they're all rear engine, they're all rear wheel drive, albeit not all the same. As meanwhile, we have to interrupt ourselves there as Daniel Page has gone round on the start finish straight. He was purple in the first and second sectors. So Daniel Newman, racing driver, he was on for an absolutely monster lap, and well, that's all gone wrong, but we know this is now into slick conditions. If somebody can put it together, you're going to see a lot of names very quickly jump up the order here in the final 7 minutes or so of this qualifying session. So hold on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen, because this qualifying session right now could be completely turned upside down. But going back to our point with that balance of performance with what is engine output restrictions, plus also weight supplied to the car and also fuel capacity restrictions, we have seen several cars have balance performance adjustments applied to them. The only car that has not been touched, in fact, I think all of them have been touched now that I remember and check my notes, and therefore we are waiting to see what exactly this does. And I know a few drivers haven't been too happy about it because they've got very settled on the car they've come to know and love, and it means we have seen a couple of car changes out there. So don't be surprised if your favourite drives in a different car today, for the simple reason they've adjusted it based on the balance of performance change, and they do get one free car swap in the Superstars category for the season. Meanwhile, Masters, of course, they don't get anything, so that's definitely ruffled a few feathers there. We'll see more about that on Saturday. But meanwhile, as we do see Tomlinson-Dennis make his way on around, well, Ben Woodgate jumps up the order, and so does Mark Collicott. So Woodgate now up into second. Collicott behind in the DCW Racing Mercedes. He comes on through. Bobby Moss now jumps up to the top of the tower. This circuit is going to get very quick right at the end, and I believe Nils Buckarger is about to make his way up there. And well, where is he going to fit into the pieces at the top? The answer to that question is going to be he's just crossed the line, and I believe he may have had an invalid lap right at the end of it, so I've not seen him jump up there on the time tab, but he was purple in the first and second sector. He's still 39, so he's got a bit more time to find. As we do say hello to Jordan B 1067, who says MTD with the muscles to say how much he's supporting him. And well, Charlie Walker now goes the fastest of everybody. The relentless racing driver, proving to be relentless in his pursuit of pole position, and that's completely understandable. As we do briefly have our overlay there, decide to refresh itself, and don't you worry about that, ladies and gentlemen. That's on our end rather than your end, and I do believe it's just having a little bit of technical moment, but hopefully it will calm down in due course. Indeed, that's a little bit out of our control at the moment. I think that's a connectivity issue. But as our drivers roll the way around, well, this qualifying session definitely right now getting very tense, as Nils Buckarger has moved up to full place, so that has adjusted itself there. So he did put a lap together, but didn't appear in time, but now it has finally appeared up there. And meanwhile, Ashley Coupland, he's gone into fourth place at 46.451. And who's looking quick in the club class? Well, club has yet to really see anybody improve. Philip Harris makes his way out. He's 3 seconds off the overall pole time right now. I wonder if a lot of club drivers decided to come into the pit lane thinking they weren't going to improve anymore. Well, Harris is not going to improve if he runs that wide when he goes onto his qualifying laps, and he hasn't got time to waste now. 4 minutes to go, and the lap around here in the dry is about 1 2/3 of a minute, and in the conditions at the moment, we are seeing it's almost 2 minutes lap. He's going to have this out lap plus 2 flying laps, so he plays the cards right. He needs to get a move on. Leighton Austin now, the man we rode on board with earlier on who got it very wrong. He now goes pole with a 45.536. Ben Woodgate jumps up there. Bobby Moss is back up there again. The SimRacing Collective Dry here is definitely trying to impress everyone today, and well, I'm very impressed by it, I can tell you that. And indeed, right now in that Porsche, he's looking to be a bit of a monster out there, as Buckarger now goes all the way out to pole position. That's a 43.260. That's 8 tenths quicker. This circuit's getting quicker and quicker, literally by the second. And well, it's all going to come down to who's the very last driver to put a qualifying lap together. That's going to have to be a tactical call from several teams here. They're going to need to try and find a way to make sure they get their driver out there for the very last qualifying lap. Because this circuit, you can see, look how prominent that dry line is. The wet line off of it, however, off of the racer 9, is absolutely huge. So therefore, you do not want to dip anywhere near wide to it. As Nicholas Carlson improves to 7th place at 46.250, but that's still 3 seconds of Buckarger's now new pole time. And well, Carlson's got to get a move on. Where's Cawte in all of it? He's down in 23rd. Here he is at the moment, but he is on an outlap, so he's going to have 1 shot at this. He won't get 2. He'll have 1. He's currently on the slick tyre, warming it up and making sure he knows exactly where the racing line is, where that dry line is, as Daniel Page now launches himself up to 3rd place. And well, we are going to get on board with other drivers, as we do see Cawte get it wrong. And here's Milton Tomlinson-Dennis making his way down the start finish straight in his Lamborghini. And let's ride on board with the Pro Championship leader to see whether he can spring some late surprises. Going down towards the opening braking zone, and onto the anchors he goes, 150 metres from the hairpin apex down to first gear, taking plenty of curve there to rotate the car, but he's got to be careful to stand in water and has to make some adjustments on the fly. He will have 1 more lap after this. There's plenty of time to improve. Leon Seeley's gone to 3rd, but Tomlinson-Dennis now into Coca-Cola Ben, braking at the 50 metre board. That's where they normally brake. He's got the confidence in the car as he makes his way down the hill in towards 100R. Now lets the car run a little bit deep initially, but he's got to try and bring it back to a nice tight apex here at turn 5. Does exactly that, and he'll keep the car to the right hand side here for the hairpin. onto the brakes, breaking 100 metres on the apex and coming through and rolling his way out of the bend and up towards Dunlop he goes. Now be flat out here every step of the way as he makes his way down the hill little by little, and as he brings the car on through. Turn number 9, he'll bring it over to the left hand side to the Dunlop where his standings he goes, and onto the brakes there, 150 metres from corner apex down to first gear. That gantry is such a brilliant brake mark, and now through the chicane, fighting with the steering wheel every step of the way. There's still a bit of water there through the chicane as he takes a lot of curve there, and right now risking it all. But that's what you got to do if you want to be pro champion at the end of the season. Coming through turn 13, now into next bend, bring it up the hill here, and here it's all about straighten the steering wheel, break away from the corner, and then just tiptoe the car towards the apex. Does it absolutely perfectly there, does Tomlinson-Dennis, and now in towards Panasonic bend. He's going to open up the corner as much as possible. If he goes deep, he'll intentionally be doing it to extend the run on the straight. No, he takes the racing line here, so therefore he feels confident with this lap. He's now just got to get the car for the exit curve there, give him the standing water in the V-shaped entrenchment, but he does so, and Tomlinson-Dennis heads towards the line. What's it going to be here? Will it be a lap that puts him on pole? There's time being found by everyone right now. A minute to go. He'll have one more lap, but he's on a personal best right now. He's not purple, but he goes fourth. It's a 42.236. He's going to have one more shot at this as more drives improving, including Mikhail Abasek in the blue Inox Motorsport machine in the Ferrari 296. He's up into 11th place. Currently the third fastest of your Inter drivers, but Luke van Goertel, he gets it wrong. He gets it wrong at Panasonic bend, and as a result, well, that lap's going to be scrapped. He tries to rejoin, but the problem is he goes to rejoin now. When can he do so? There's everyone coming through. He goes now. He's going to have one more chance at this, the MJK SimRacing driver, and indeed right now he'll be praised at the fact he's been able to keep it together and not have it go fully around. He'll be able to go onto one last attempt, so he's at risk now falling down because of course he has not improved. He was going very quick. Buckarga comes across the line, purple in the second and final sector. That's a 40.538. Everyone's finding so much time out there. Eddie Theobald, club pole sits at 14th place overall as Brandon Dyers jumped up to second place. Well, 10 seconds left on the clock here, and after this, ladies and gentlemen, they're all locked into their final lap. They're allowed to finish their last lap, but of course, if a driver makes a mistake at that point, they're not going any quicker. And well, we've still got plenty of drivers coming around, but this qualifying session definitely now is in the overtime element as Villa Katonen goes to 6th. Now be second in Inter for the time being. Thomas Weston moves up to 15th place, but we're continuing to look around as Rob Gregg heads towards the timing line, and the Moonshiners Racing Club driver MRC, as Charlie Walker just up the road from him goes to 41.476. We do see there's some hot clean move up to a 44.166 ahead of Gregg, who jumps to the top of club. He's going to be in 11th now, 42.734. Who else is going to improve out there? Well, Steve Hughes does not, nor does Philip Harris, as we do see our driver park up. Andy Jones and the cat liveried Acura, the DCW livery that's absolutely loved, and they're glad they got it mentioned on the broadcast last time out. We makes the one around right now, 40th place. This is not where he wants to be at all, but they are all improving. Tomlinson-Dennis will not be on pole. He sets a 40.593. Buckarga right now is set for pole position unless anybody else can find some more time. They all make the one through. They've all got a slipstream here as well. This is going to be absolutely invaluable as they head towards the timeline. Don't be surprised if this timing tower suddenly launches itself all over the place on your screen. And well, as we do see Bradley Setters up there. I was right the first time. He goes 7th. We do see Leon Seeley just behind him. Jared Love goes to the top of Inter now in 10th place. The DDK Racing team driver will be praying that he's got the job done. Luke van Goertel heads on through. He's purple of everybody in the first sector. Luke van Goertel hasn't improved in the second sector, but has he got the time in the final sector? Can he potentially steal the Inter pole position back? And if so, by how much? Here he comes to line as he crosses it. He's purple in the final sector. And for Luke van Goertel, it's not enough. He had a terrible middle sector, and it's cost him all the time as Brandon Dyer improves. Richard Simnor goes up to 8th place. The Corvette driver for DCW Racing finds that time. We've still got drivers on laps. Benjamin Massey coming around. Right now, he's going to be one of the very last tries to get laps together. We do have Kyle Roy just up the road, and so is Thomas Weston. So Massey's the very last, but Weston's gone wide at a corner. He's lost the time, he's lost the lap. So therefore, Kyle Roy is going to be the driver who tries to improve here. Makes his way on down. What's it going to be for Roy? The answer's going to be, it's not an improvement for Kyle Roy. It does not count. Benjamin Massey, meanwhile, well, he's going to be, I believe, the very last driver on the lap. In fact, is he the last driver on the lap, or has he already finished all his laps? And just double checking the time, I think this lap may not count to be fair. I think this is a cool down lap that he's experimenting to see how quick he can go. He is currently 28th. He does cross that timeline, and I believe it does not count for Benjamin Massey. So that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. And well, how about that? The rain came, it went away, and in the final 8 minutes of qualifying, the slick tyre was the optimum tyre, and everyone found time. But we do have a new pole sitter for the season, and that is Niels Buckarga for NJB Performance overall and pro pole as well. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis joining on the front row, and then Jared Love will be your interpole sitter starting in 11th place, and he will have plenty of company behind him. And we didn't quite catch that, your club pole sitter, but we'll bring you up to speed with them we do go. In fact, your club pole sitter, I believe in the end, was Rob Gregg. Although, don't quote me on that, ladies and gentlemen, with what was Christopher Petty just behind him. So those will be starting right towards the front of a club class that is very tight. What a session. And well, the good news is we now got 5 minutes to try and understand how it all played out. But we do head to the grid for our one and only race here. But a few drivers will sit in the pit lane. What a difficult call this is going to be. Because remember, we are expecting the rain to come back quite early on the race. In fact, it's due to arrive literally just before they're meant to head to the grid. So, understandably, all drivers right now will be thinking to themselves one thing and one thing only is it actually worth it going out there? As Thomas Weston goes very sideways at turn number 1, but of course the Union Jack livery always does impress, although he won't feel too impressed with himself for that error. And well, as we do have Leighton Austin in the pit lane, several drivers parked up in the pit lane at the moment. Nobody wants to go out, and I think the reason for this is, understandably, that their thought process is there's no value in going out onto a circuit that is going to get wet. They know, because it is timelined weather that we race with, it is not forecasted weather, so they are expecting the rain to come, and it will come, and that does avoid the sometimes biblical weather conditions that we can see on iRacing. That's not a complaint against iRacing, we should point out, in the fact their forecasted weather is absolutely brilliant in terms of the modelling, but of course we want to avoid some of the instances and scenes that we've had in previous seasons, and particularly many of you may remember, if you tuned into the Sunday UK Sim Racing GT3 Championship in Season 17, our trip to Daytona there, where we did have forecasted weather, and the heavens opened up so much that the race would have been red flagged in reality, but our drivers then drove through a swimming pool of a circuit, and how they all managed to get it home, nobody knows, but that was testament to our drivers' ability there. We want to avoid that, because light rain, which you have seen here today, is more than enough to make a circuit very wet, and as we do see Stephen Kershaw heading on the round, well, right now he'll be keeping his head to the ground and thinking, okay, I've got to respect the fact these are not going to be the conditions that we are going to see when we do go green flag racing. He's going to make the most of learning, just in case he can get some knowledge for when the rain may stop during the race, and it just help him out a little bit more. Indeed, what a challenging day it has been so far, and we've got plenty more to come from all these drivers. And we didn't get a real chance to see how Dwayne Hoffman, the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport team, got on in the qualifying session, but we'll definitely see them out there in due time and see how they all fit into the fold. But indeed, with changeable conditions at any moment, it does mean this race could be turned back on its head once again, and that's the excitement of wet weather and the Fuji circuit. Absolutely brilliant circuit to have some rain at, for the simple reason there is a variety of corners, plus it's long straight, plus also it's very long pit lane. You don't want to get caught out with the wrong tyre and having to make an extra pit stop. But as Richard Simnor comes towards the line, he'll be happy to have qualified inside the top 10 overall and in pro. And again, he's one of those drivers who's not the quickest in the pro class in terms of one-lap pace, but he's definitely one of the most consistent and one of the smartest when it comes to the race, and that's how he earns that second place last time out at Mugello. It was through sheer determination and making sure he didn't put a foot wrong, whereas many others did, and he got it very much right on strategy as well. But we're 2 minutes left on the clock, and we do say hello to any more of you tuning in, including none other than Ashley Brooks Designs, or AB Designs, who says, let's go Axis Sim Sports. And don't be shy if you're tuning in right now, feel free to say hi and let us know who you're cheering on today, and also let us know how you're doing. And of course, if you are feeling a little bit down, if perhaps you've had a bit of a difficult week, it is Thursday, of course, Friday's just around the corner. Well, hopefully this broadcast can turn that frown that you've got into a smile. Let's turn it upside down for you, and we've got plenty of brilliant racing to come. As we get to Benjamin Massey, and he'll be a bit gutted because I think the lap he did put together, which was not quite within the 45 minutes of qualifying, it was just beyond going into overtime. Well, I think the Inox Motorsport driver was feeling as though he could have potentially been right towards the front of the pro class there. But still, the Mercedes driver is definitely learning. Of course, he made his way into the GT3 Championship after competing in the Interclass for our GTE Championship's inaugural season. And well, he's been such a star for the Inox Motorsport team, and we're very happy to have him on our GT3 grid. And the Inox team definitely have been some great contenders, and we look forward to seeing plenty more from them as the season does go on. Although sadly, we are missing the third member of the team. We do have Massey plus also Abasek here, but we do not have Matthias Pettinger here. Due to personal circumstances, he's unfortunately had to withdraw, if my memory serves me correctly. And well, we do hope to see Matthias back on the grid one day, because it's not quite the same. Indeed, just like the Beatles, you've got to have 4 of them to make up the band. Well, for Inox Motorsport, it's not quite the same if you don't have all 3 of them together. They're all brilliant characters. But speaking of Magello, as he heads on down there in the blue livery machine, that Ferrari will definitely have a very distinctive livery on that car. And I do love the fact they've also incorporated the Superstars logo into the side, as well as the SRI logo. I do believe whoever the artist is who does the liveries for Inox Motorsport team, they deserve a raise. But I could say that about so many of the liveries you see on the cars here, ladies and gentlemen. But enough thinking about the liveries. It's time to make our way to the grid because it's time for 60 minutes of racing action here in Japan. Because in the Shizuoka Prefecture, it's time for the superstars to take on Mount Fuji, and we'll see who exactly is going to come out on top for 60 minutes of racing. And so our drivers make the way to the grid, and as they do so, this is how they'll line up for one and only race. It's Nils Bakago who starts on poles, the rain comes down, and the privateer pro pole sitter will be joined on the front row by Milton Tomlinson-Dennis for SimRacing Racing. Behind them, Brandon Steyer starts in third place for Altitude Frame Esports, and then you'll see starting fourth Ben Woodgate for the Inter-Racing team. Ashley Coutland begins the day in fifth then for Relentless Racing ahead of Daniel Page, and the Daniel Newman Racing Red driver was only in the best part of half a tenth ahead of Charlie Walker. The Relentless Racing driver starts seventh ahead of Richard Simnor for DCW Racing Blue, and it's going to be Bradley Setters in ninth place for Relentless Racing, just ahead of Leon Seeley, who completes the top 10 for Samantha Racing. Outside the top 10 at 11th place, it will be your Interpol sitter Jared Love, backward bang with today, and looking to try and make a third win in 4 rounds. The DDK with Race That Bot driver being joined on the 6th row by his teammate in the pro class of Elliot Cawte. Then it's going to be Luke van Gertel starting at 13th for NJK Sim Racing, a run up in the interclass in qualifying, head of Villa Katona for Beowulf Racing Team. Bobby Moss starts 15th ahead of your club pole sitter of Rob Gregg for Moonshine's Racing Club, who in the end just managed to outpace Christopher Petty to that pole position. Petty starts second in club ahead of Kyle Roy, and it's Leighton Austin and Mikhail Abasek who complete your top 20. In 21st, we've got Andy Jones there for DCW Racing Blue. He's got some work to do ahead of Ross Young. And then we do see none other than the machinery there of Smith, and that is going to be, I believe, the car of Adam Smith that's actually starting from the pit lane now, so he'll give up a spot then. Arno Proctor would join him on 24th. Ashley Shuck Smith starts 25th ahead of Thomas Weston, with Eddie Theobald 27th ahead of Benjamin Massey, and your top 30 completed by Sam Hockley and Jack Giles. Outside the top 30, 31st, it's going to be Schubert Cardozo ahead of Chris Cole, and then you do have 33rd, Denny Ploger, the wet weather maestro, as James Bostock says hello in the YouTube chat and points that out. I do believe he's on a business trip right now, and I hope it's all going well, James. And well, the fact you've got time to tune in, we're very grateful to that. And Denny Ploger starting on that 17th row ahead of Nicholas Carlson. Bradley Pickett starts 35th ahead of Jordan Butler with Mark Collicott and Raz Harper on row 19. They both struggled at the end of qualifying. Watch out for them. And then we will have Philip Harris and none other than Steve Hughes completing the top 40. 41st, it's going to be Steve Kershaw ahead of Max Dean, with Alfred Kirstein starting 43rd, the Danishman ahead of Martin Kenyon. And then with James Fraser and Adrian Howard on the penultimate row of the grid, with Dwayne Hoffman bringing up the rear in 47th place. As the field makes its way down the start finish straight, ladies and gentlemen, we've had to quickly run through that grid given the shortness of the formation lap, and it's almost time for us to go green. And when we do in the rain, it'll be Nils Bakago who takes us away for 60 minutes of racing action here at the Fuji International Speedway in round number 4 of the Thursday GT3 Championship Season 12, brought to you by SimRacing International. And it's lights down, away we go for 60 minutes of racing action here as they roar the way down towards turn 1. After a long wait there, you could cut the tension with a knife, but who's going to cut it at the front as they come into that braking zone? And Bakaga immediately goes defensive. The white pit exit line, they've got to be so careful that will be slippery. And as all the drivers make their way through, we look to the blimp camera, and well, everyone's saved on through, at least inside the top 20 by looks of things. They all scramble through the opening corner right now. A few drivers going to the wide line there to try and use the space, but everyone through the opening corner. Well done to all of our drivers. But now, as they make their way to Coca-Cola Bend, this is where they'll have to go one wide. You can't go too wide through here in the wet as they come down the hill through 100R, and all these drivers together. You can see the long train, but meanwhile Richard Simnor trying to keep Leon Seeley at bay, and our top 10 all pro drivers at the moment, with Jared Love still holding on to what is the interlead. But look at that, Luke van Gertel trying to go on the attack here, looking one side and the other, and Love right now using his teammate of Elliot Cawte as a bit of a buffer. They both go on the low line there. Meanwhile, you can see that Elliot Cawte goes to the high line. That's going to cost him some time, but down the hill they come. Rob Gregg's had a good starting club. I'm not quite sure where Petty is. I think Petty's fallen back a bit overall, but he's still second place in class. In fact, I just saw him there briefly in the rear of the picture, being attacked by Schubert Cardozo, but in towards the hairpin they come, and as they do, with the first heavy braking zone, and that's going to be Van Gertel go for the move, looking around the outside to inside versus Jared Love. He's going all in. He's going to get it done as the MJK Sim Racing drive. It's bold, it's brave, and it's absolutely brilliant, and he moves up into 10th place. Further back, Bobby Moss. Well, he right now is still battling side by side with Leighton Austin, but Moss seems to be a bit of a wet weather specialist in the interclass, and right now he's getting his head down and putting on the class show. But looking back, Christopher Petty there in his Porsche runs a bit wide through turn 13. That's going to enable Ashley Shucksmith to look from around the outside. Remember, Shucksmith was the outside. Oh, it's all gone wrong just in front. And well, they're all going to have to take a base of action. And that is the Ferrari there of Mikel Abasek turned around and missed the whole rear end. We've also got the clock St James Dexterous Motorsports McLaren that's gone round. And that's going to be the car of Ross Young trying to pick up the pieces. And we'll get a replay of that of what exactly has happened very shortly. But as they make the one down, and towards turn number 1, we do say hello there to Fotis Cantios, who jokingly says who's going to win by 51 seconds now, given his impressive performance in the wet weather conditions, only a round to go. And here's Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, who leads right now. Could he be the one to do that? He leads, but as they come through the hairpin for the second time, Niels Bakaga following right behind, having swapped the place with Tomlinson-Dennis. And then we do see Ashley Kirtland in third at the moment, ahead of Brandon Dyer. That's your top 4. Ben Woodgate is 5th, ahead of Charlie Walker and Richard Simnor. Then it's Luke Van Gertel in 8th place, coming into leader. And right now, to taking the lead off Jared Love, an absolutely bombastic move in towards the Dunlop hairpin. Well, since he's been able to break away, Daniel Page, Leon Seeley and Bradley Setters behind. And something tells me that given what happened to Mikel Abasek, it may have just shuffled up the order a little bit. I think there was perhaps an earlier contact than that. But here's Van Gertel trying to go around the outside to the inside versus Richard Simnor. And right now, the MJK SimRacing driver there, the grip he is finding on that outside line, that's absolutely incredible. Those wet tyres absolutely glued up to the road. And well, we can prove the fact they're all on wet tyres. You look to the timing tower as they're all coming down. We've got plenty more battles going on late in Austin, being passed by Bobby Moss, and Moss right now trying to make sure that Austin cannot come back at him, but Villa Katonen is right in front. So Bobby Moss has been looking fast, but Katonen as well. And well, all these drivers right now coming back in towards the Dunlop hairpin. But further back, as we do see a couple of drivers running wide, that's Cole Roy running very deep, and with him Rob Gregg, the club leader. And well, Roy's going to take that place off of him in the end, but a bit of an unconventional way to do it. Rear of the picture, you do see side by side there for Arno Proud versus Chris Cole. That's the focus of our cameraman's attention. And the MJK SimRacing driver right now on that outside line coming in towards turn 12. Well, it's not going to be the easiest line. In fact, coming through 13, we should correct ourselves. That's going to be Sam Hockley diving up the inside. And Hockley says, you need to give me the space. I'm going to take it off you just like that. As they make the way up the hill right now, is anyone going to go to the move on the inside? As that's going to be Eddie Fearbold, who's gone very wide, and he reverses his way out. The camera comes back. Car round. That's Jack Giles going for a spin. So Giles has been turned around. Then the Eurotype endurance driver. Not quite sure how he's got there, but we know the outcome as he seems to get it back around. And well, he's got a lot of work to do now to make up for the lost ground. Eddie Fearbold still fighting with Martin Kenyon as they go onto the start finish straight. And well, these laps continue to accrue quite rapidly here, but all these drivers right now doing very well to survive the conditions. And there's still a lot more time in this race. So remember, the rain's going to fall. It's then going to go away. We have a lot of cloud over the circuit, and then the rain will come back. So therefore, I suspect the wet tyre is going to be the tyre to be on all day today. Oh, hold up. That's Raz Harper who's got around at turn number 1. A couple of drivers going very deep there. I wonder there's been a bit of an incident, and he's going to be the major recipient of the damage on this one. There's a lot of drivers sliding loose at the opening hairpin, and I wonder if wherever the rain is building on that corner, and we're starting to see rivers forming. Well, not literal rivers, but the fact that water will flow downhill from the hairpin, and I suspect as it cuts across the circuit to go to the drainage ditch on the outside at turn number 2, that's what drivers are going across, and they're losing traction there. Indeed, very similar to the water that flows across Spa-Francorchamps on the run on the Kemmel Straight, or indeed down through turn number 1 at Kyalami in South Africa. You do have streams of water going towards the drainage system. But meanwhile, we do see Rob Gregg attacking at Benjamin Massey, with Nicholas Carlson behind, and right now Carlson being very patient here, and the Beowulf Racing Team driver, I think he realised the fact that as much as he would love to fight with the club and the pro driver in front, is it worth it until everything settles down? He's going to be very clear at his moves. He's going to go up the inside, and Gregg's going to go very deep there, and that's by design, as we have had a run off the road for Benjamin Massey. A bit too much confidence under braking, and unfortunately that confidence misplaced. He's gone deep, and the Onyx Motorsport driver brings it back on, but I don't think it's going to take away from his smile, as he now battles side by side here with Daniel Page, fighting with Velo Pro driver. And Page, after what was a very near miss in qualifying in terms of taking that pole position, after he was purple and got it all wrong coming out the final corner at Panasonic Bend, right now trying to get his head down once again as Christopher Petty fighting Mark Collicott, but Philip Harris is right with them, and Harris right now trying to poke and probe as we ride on board here with your third place runner in the club class. Now he has got Petty on his right. You'll see him there very shortly, or will use the answer, and well, there he is. We look to the exterior cameras, they're still side by side, and well, Petty struggling for traction coming out to Panasonic Bend, and Harris is going to power his way on past, but coming down at start finish straight, it's going to the battle of a drag strip now for 2 Porsche 992 GT3Rs, and Harris is going to get ahead just by a slender margin as all the headlights go on, and indeed visibility now becoming very taxing as they get ready to go into the hairpin braking zone. Petty on the left of your picture, Harris on the right. Oh, he touched the white line. It's going to be Petty into the barrier there, and the pin exit line strikes again, and the 191 driver hits the barrier, goes around, and we bring himself back together. But as we mentioned earlier on, you do not want to touch that white line, particularly brake on it, and well, that That's the reason why, because you will have no traction on the tyres that are touched at the time of braking, and Christopher Petty find out the hard way what happens. You cut across it and you get on the brakes off of it, or you have to go single file on the braking or try to force your way into a too wide away from it. You've got options, but unfortunately Christopher Petty picked the wrong option there. But meanwhile, back to the front of the field. And here we can see Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. He is opening up a bit of a gap to Niels Buckarga, as we do have a little bit of sunlight coming through, although the rain is still falling. We're on his way on through and coming up the hill. Well, Ben Woodgate further behind, but you see Luke van Gertel, and he is flying right now, the MJK Sim Racing driver. He's 4th overall, leader of the interclass. But behind, Brandon Dyer and Richard Simnor fighting. Leon Seeley is there, and Jared Love, he is picking his way through as well. In fact, Love is quicker than Van Gertel at the moment, and I'm not saying that to try and make it feel a bit better. He's just been lapping at the best part of 9 tenths quicker than Van Gertel on the previous lap. If the DDK Race Statbot driver can keep this pace up and Van Gertel cannot, we will see an inter-battle a bit later on in this one. And Van Gertel makes his way to the inside there of Woodgate, who is struggling right now as they make the way on down the start-finish straight. And as they come roaring on down, we're going to tell you one thing, it's going to be the battle of the two of them side by side here. And that Aston Martin will likely just have the legs in the long term. These two cars not known for their straight line speed, although the traction of that Porsche is definitely going to give it a little bit of an advantage by the time they get to the next braking zone and exit. But coming all the way down to the corner, we can see Van Gertel on the inside, Woodgate on the right, and well, meanwhile, just behind, we can see a two-way battle, but that's going to be Brandon Dyer fighting all the way to the inside, and in the end, we see Richard Simnor outbrake himself. So Brandon Dyer, he does manage to get to the inside, he avoids the pit exit line, and he will take that place of a Simnor for 4th in the Pro class. Lovely move there, and absolutely brilliant battles back and forth between these drivers. But as we do look back to Rob Gregg, he finds himself absolutely swarmed with inter-drives right now. That's the Union Jack machine of Brad Pickett. Well, not the Union Jack machine of Brad Pickett, that is the Union Jack machine of Thomas Weston trying to make a move, and Brad Pickett is pulling away in the dexterous motorsport with St James. Ferrari just in front as Greg defends. Does he need to defend right now? Well, the answer may be no, given that he's not got Philip Harris too close behind. There's Harris in the rear of your picture behind Mark Collicott. That shows you how close it is for the club lead. But meanwhile, drivers making a bit of progress out there. We do look to Eddie Fearbold battling side by side with none other than the leaders at the moment. They do put a lap on him at this point. And Fearbold's got some work to do here to try and make up for the lost time as he comes on around, but down in 45th place. It's not going to be an easy job, but to be fair, he's going to keep his head down and see what he can do. But as Jared Love continues to fight here, that's with Charlie Walker. And the relentless racing driver trying to get involved there. Well, Brandon Dyer and Richard Simnor at each other again. And Leon Seeley watched it from behind. But we ride aboard looking back for the rear of the 3584 Mustang. And the Altitude 3M Esports driver right now, he has the unenviable task of keeping a very confident Richard Simnor behind. And that's the one thing you don't want. It's not that you don't want Richard Simnor behind you. You don't want a confident Richard Simnor behind you. Because when he's got the confidence, there's no stopping him in these conditions. And you can see there Leon Seeley queuing up as well. And once they make their way down that start finish straight now, 10 minutes of this race almost complete. And it's another drag race. We do see a flash of the headlights there for Richard Simnor, and I wonder what that's all about, where he's trying to distract or annoy. But as they come down, well, you can see that Brandon Dyer puts the car in the middle of the road. So I think that's more to position himself. Will go defensive towards the wall, and now Simnor's got to make a call. Does he go even closer to the wall? Does he go around the outside? Well, he's going to pick the latter option. He's going to go around the outside. Dyer goes very defensive here on the inside. Does he get stopped in time? No, he does. He overcooks the braking zone, and suddenly Richard Simnor's going to come through as Brandon Dyer makes a complete ham sandwich out the opening corner, and Leon Seeley behind there just watched on right now. So Richard Simnor gets back into 4th place in Pro. Well, I suspect that's not the end of that battle, but Bobby Moss battling side by side with Carl Roy, and right now these two moving forward, but Carl Roy having to go very defensive versus Moss, as we do say hello there to Average Sharpie, or Kieran Sharp from the Sim Racing Collective, and right now cheering on his teammate and good friend as they make the way on around, and very happy to see him there, as we also say hello to Phoenix Racing, and I do believe that might be Grant Miller who we're saying hello to there, and I hope you're doing well, good sir. But as the drivers make the way on through, well, right now we're definitely seeing here Bobby Moss's Porsche losing out a little bit versus Carl Roy, and the fault may be with the balance of performance update, as mentioned there by the Phoenix Racing account, is that it may have seen the Porsche lose its advantage in wet weather conditions. It has been very strong in the wet and sunny. Perhaps the BOP update has just made it lean a little bit away from its strengths, and indeed just brought it into a bit more parity. And if so, it's always good to see, as that's not good to see. Rob Gregg's gone around, and that's going to be Christopher Petty, Steve Hughes coming on through. Now Gregg's going to drop all the way down to 4th place in club, and that suddenly is going to mean that Philip Harris is into lead of the club class right now, the Euro Titans endurance driver, and one day I will get that team name right for the first time on the broadcast, ladies and gentlemen, without having to look it up. In fact, I do get it in the wrong order, but right now the 121 driver absolutely on a mission here to see if he can hold on. But Greg is being passed by Ashley Shucksmith in towards the hairpin. That's Shucksmith in the KFC Ferrari. And remember, Chuck Smith was your master of the wet at Spa-Francorchamps only 2 weeks ago. And here today, he is making some steady progress up the order. Now he's got himself settled down. Can he carry it on? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But as all these drivers head onwards, we do say hello there to Sideways Games and also Mark Kent, both in on Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport. And Mark Kent says there, duck weather at Fuji tonight, and indeed it is. Indeed, you can sail a little ship down here. But as Rob Gregg looks for a move, it's not going to work out just right now. Chuck Smith taking that wider line with confidence and simply saying to him, that's not happening. As they all head on through, a car running a bit wide there. Couldn't quite see who that was, taking a bit of an adventure. And well, now we can see that is, I believe, the car that's going to be rejoining of James Fraser. So Fraser now a bit of a nightmare day so far, and indeed that trip wide is going to see him go a lap down to these drivers. Actually, Chuck Smith now has got the pressure of Greg behind him. So with the fact that he had been able to hold him off for a bit, well, Greg looking a bit quick on the straight by comparison. Onto the brakes they go, and you can see there Greg trying to put the brakes on and realise that you can't. As meanwhile, that is going to be a Mercedes coming charging in very late on. That's Jordan Butler going straight on, and the Virtual Motorsport driver in the end of the 195 does get it stopped in the gravel, but I think they missed his braking marker, just designed to throw the car at the corner and get it out the way of anybody coming up behind and make sure he doesn't hit anyone. That's all you can do. We've got a black flag, meanwhile, for Thomas West. Oh, goodness me! And that's contact with Ashley Coupland he's had. And I think the black flag's for the instant points he's accrued. But meanwhile, that was almost additional casualties there in that instant, but not quite, as meanwhile we do see Jared Love still holding off Brad Pickett with Cole Roy, and we are seeing that AB Design saying Love has just been taken out or been involved in an instant. We're going to get a replay of that very shortly, ladies and gents. We're going to get a replay of several big moments, as right now things just are not calming down, but I don't think anything is going to calm down here, and we'll try to get an understanding of how exactly this is all played out. Now, we would normally get a replay of the race start, but given the fact that everything is so high tension at the moment, we are going to get replays of some of the big incidents from the start of the race, but we'll just see what happens here between Love, Pickett and Roy. Before that, they're fighting over fourth place in the interclass as they make their way up the hill. Right now, Brad Pickett is the pursuer, Roy with them as well, but this Ferrari, of course, we do know it's quite strong on the straights, particularly when it's got a tow, albeit when it's by itself, it doesn't need to go too well, but the BOP change may have adjusted that, because normally, of course, this car runs all the way to the top end of fifth gear, and they never quite touch sixth. They make the way on down. Well, right now, Jared Love here finds that Pickett's looking one side than the other. Love puts in the middle row, but gradually brings himself over to the left-hand side. But you're going to see that Pickett will get to the right of him. So Pickett on the right, Love on the left, and behind Kyle Roy just watching on with Andy Jones queuing up behind. And well, Pickett's going to go for the switchback, but Love parks on the apex and says, nope, I've seen that one before. I'm not going to fall for it, as they go onwards and in towards what will be turn number 3. Now, whilst all this is happening, we should point out that Luke Van Gertel, yes, you've read that right, is your overall leader. He's found his way into lead ahead of Woodgate and Bakage, and well, right now the MJK SimRacing drive is absolutely flying out there. This is a monster performance, and he is in the interclass. He is not in the pro class, but right now he's putting on a pro plus performance as he comes down towards the hairpin. But with that, we are going to go back in time and take a look back at some of the big moments in the opening lap, starting with what went wrong for Thomas Weston on lap 1. It all went very wrong for the British driver as he made his way up into Nets Bend, coming onto the back of Andy Jones. Up the hill here. What exactly went wrong? The rear of the car started to skid loose, and at that point, I think he really was the passenger in his car. Mikhail Abasek went to the scene instant, so did Ross Young, and then also a bit of contact there for a couple of other drivers. The field had to spread on around at that point, but that explains what happened. I'm very unfortunate for them all there, and we did see, I think, Nicholas Carlson getting caught up in that one in his Mercedes. Weston dived up the inside there, and what I think are slight tempers between the two drivers, but I'm sure they'll cool down after that one. Meanwhile, we also did have a bit of a big moment for none other than what was Mikhail Abasek, and this was Abasek. Well, in fact, this was Nicholas Carlson making a move firstly on Thomas Weston down the start finish straight. So then they did settle themselves down. He gradually passed him little by little after their altercation. So there was the change there. But the main thing we did want to take a look at was what exactly happened to Mikhail Abasek, because this was Carlson making the move and making sure to obey the line. Oh, and that was the car of Mark Collicott getting it very wrong under braking there. So he got it wrong, as then we do come to what happened to Abasek. And this was Abasek mains back the hill. Well, he was in the wounded car and he was just going around. They had no car left to go with. Daniel Page had it all go wrong on lap number 2, and this is what happened to him. The Daniel Newman Racing red driver was making his way up towards nets. I think this is going to be a hot spot, for instance, today. And as he made his way up the hill, the rear of the car slid loose, and in the end it was a passenger who ejected himself all the way to the outside of the road. We had it go a bit wrong for Eddie Fearbold on lap number 2. This is what happened to your club driver. I think it's going to be the exact same thing as what happened to your Daniel Newman Racing driver. So he made his way up the hill, and the rear of the car let go, just like that. And in the end, thankfully, we did see the DNR car move aside. Otherwise, I think Theobald would have gone into it, and it would have been two Mercedes parked together. Jack Giles had it go wrong for him as well, and this was at next bend as well. I think we're going to be saying this over and over now, the Euro Titans endurance driver. What went wrong for him was the car very slowly let go, and everyone backed off behind immediately seeing it. Well done to everyone for their reactions. We had this for Raz Harper on lap number 3. And this was Harper coming down towards turn number 1. He was battling with Andy Jones there. Jones looking up the inside, couldn't quite find it. And the pro driver in the end was tapped to the rear by Jones. So the two pros came together and Harper in a slow spin. And at that point, Jones could not back off. He had to go through the corner, not because he wanted to be a nuisance, but that explains why Raz Harper got it wrong. And Jones couldn't park up there, so he would have caused a traffic jam. Ashley Coote had this happen on lap number 3 to him. This was into Coca-Cola Bend for the relentless racing Mercedes driver. The 363 went in, and in the end, as he came out the corner, the rear let go. Very light on the rear, that Mercedes in the downhill bends, and it just went spinning on around. But as it went around for him, we did have this big moment for Jordan Butler. And I think this was Butler getting it wrong coming up the hill through into next bend. So the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport driver had it go a bit backwards for himself. And what was an instance what happened previously for so many other drivers, the rear just letting it go. Also, Dwayne Hoffman experienced similar, and unfortunately, Eddie Theobald coming straight into the side of Butler there, had nowhere to go. Oh, and that was very so of Denny Plow and Arno Prongs. They all got it wrong there. So more drivers being collected in that corner, and several more cars, in fact. We didn't quite see all of them, but a lot of drivers getting it wrong in the rear of the picture, so we did not catch that at all. Then we had this for Cole Roy on lap number 4, and indeed, as he made his way down the hill, in towards what was the Dunlop hairpin, went onto the brakes on the outside, chasing after Bobby Moss, and whoa, and there was a car around already. That was Vela Katonen. Now, we didn't quite see who knocked him, but we definitely saw that Roy had to react. This is how it looks from Katonen. So he came down the hill, and who tapped him on the rear? I get the feeling that is going to be on your relentless racing cars. I wonder if that's Ashley Coote behind him. And just tapped there on the rear quarter panel, it sent it round, and then it built up a queue of cars just like that. So it went wrong. In fact, that was Leighton Austin, we can confirm. It all went a bit wrong for him. And we had this for Rob Gregg on lap number 6. And this was Greg having it all go very much wrong from the lead of the club class, battling side by side at the time with Mark Collicott, and then into the braking zone here for the corner. Contact sent him sideways, and that released what was Philip Harris into lead. So a tiny rub, and it all went round. But we need to talk about some positives, and this was Luke Van Gertel making his way into lead. This was on lap number 4 that he found his way on past none other than Ben Woodgate, making his way up the inside there into Panasonic corner and getting the job done. Then on lap number 6, he went for this on Niels Bakage as they made the way up through nets and in towards Panasonic, and Van Gertel absolutely flying to make this move happen. And up the inside he went, and then he found a way past Milton Tomlinson-Dennis for the lead, and this was going down towards what was turn number 3, and St. tells me that Tomlinson-Dennis has made an error. Oh, he went spinning from the lead of the race. The Samantha Town Racing driver went around, and that's how the lead changed hands. So that explains it, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come back to your live racing. And as we do come back, of course, we do apologise for the fact we were 6 minutes away from live action, but understanding we've got so many replays to cover. And well, has anything changed since then? Well, we have seen a couple of incidents for some drivers further down, although one big incident for Brandon Dyer. We will be getting a replay of that very shortly to explain. He has been a big casualty whilst we've been away in replay land. And, well, Brandon Dyer haven't got all wrong for him, but otherwise it has been primarily the status quo for the most part since then. And if we have missed anything, we do apologise. But we look to Daniel Page battling side by side with Raz Harper, and right now these two on a bit of a recovery mission here as they try to move forward. We do show you that tyre compound on the screen, and do note as well the fact the rain has stopped for now. But the reason why the Interclass are above the Pro Class in terms of that time tag is because of Luke Van Gertel, who owns the fastest lap overall at the moment, and it will change should a Pro driver go quicker than his fastest lap, or indeed a club driver do so. But Van Gertel right now, I don't know what he's had for breakfast, but if he was based in the United Kingdom, we'd be saying he's had his 2 Weetabix and some milk run in that. But meanwhile, Daniel Page definitely getting on past Harper there. Smooth move, but Harper comes back at him now and says, you know what, I can do that. I can go with the switchback. And that's the wonderful thing about the turn 6 hairpin. It's one of those corners where you can cut it several different ways when you're batting in the wet and the dry, and that's the wonderful thing about Fuji as a whole. A lot of these corners you can take multiple lines to do battling at, as Harper's going to go all in on the brakes. Page sees it coming and just holds his line, and Raz Harper there, very bold, very brave, but is it going to work out? Yes, it will, just about. But a bit further behind them, Rob Gregg, Steve Hughes fighting for third place in the club class here as they head up the hill, and well, that fight's definitely going to ignite quite nicely as they make the way on around. But plenty of fighting to come between these all drivers, no doubt about it, as more fastest laps being set, and this circuit is getting quicker now that the rain has stopped. but I don't think we're going to be seeing a transition to the slick tyre because the amount of cloud over the circuit right now, whilst we have got the best part of 40 cars to out on circuit, which will be gradually burning away the water. In fact, we have a grand total of 44 out there. We have sadly along the way lost Benjamin Massey, Thomas Weston and Ross Young. Well, understandably here, they will not be putting enough heat down in order to be able to boil away the water on the track surface. We'll see what Rob Gregg can do as he loses out to Steve Hughes that time around. There's still plenty of laps to go on this hallowed ground. As we come from him, it's a bit further up the order. We do go to Nicholas Carlson, who's battling with Jared Love. And remember, Love, the man who started on pole in the club class, had it all turned around right at the very start. And right now he's got to try and turn it around once again in his favour. Albeit Carlson proving to be an equal. Carlson's got a bit of damage onto that Mercedes, as we did see in the replays. And then they do have Brad Pickett only a second ahead of them. So Pickett's for the pickings, but understandably from that, then Bobby Moss is a lot further up the road. So it may not be easy at that point onwards. And Luke Van Gertel is in a postcode of his own at the very front of the field. As Schubert Cardozo battling side by side with Pickett. Pickett's going to try and come past the Inter-Racing team driver. On the inside he goes. And the 307 Aston Martin driver may just have to let this one go for now. He tries to get his nose in there to turn number 12. Is it going to work out? And the answer is not quite, as in the end Brad Pickett does seal the move. Lovely bit of battling between the two of them. Respectful racing, that's what we love to see. And we'll go through right now. This field definitely quite close together in the hunt for what is really currently 7th place all the way through to around 25th. More change to come, as we do see a bit of a change. Nicholas Carlson, in fact, had a bit of an error, I suspect, as he now falls back behind Jared Love, and Philip Harris is right with him. The club leader getting onto the back of him as quick as that, and trying to poke his way through. But new fastest laps in club and also the interclass. Sadly for Max Dean, he is almost a whole lap down at the moment in the interclass, because otherwise he is lapping sensationally fast at the moment. And I would imagine that he would be hoping he can make some steady progress later on this race. And we always see a new fastest lap in the pro class for Walker, that being Charlie Walker. But Walker being all the way down in 9th place. He tries to get it together. Speaking of Walker, here he is on picture right now, and the relentless racing drive on the back of his teammate of Bradley Setters, as Pickett and Cardozo are going side by side again, and Cardozo comes back at Pickett this time and says, know your place. And meanwhile, I get the feeling right now, Brad Pickett says, well, I do know where my place is, it's making my way up the road. But as we do see the overall standings there, they're fighting over 12th place. A good little battle between those two. But we take a pause in live racing action to see what exactly happened to Brandon Dyer only a few moments ago. This was back on lap number 9, and it was a big one because it relegated him outside of the top 10. I do just see Pickett trying to go around the outside of Cardozo. We're going to stay with this just for a little bit, and I think Pickett's going to get that done, as that's a very wide line there from Elliot Cawte, and he will serve a slowdown penalty for that. You can't get away with that, unfortunately, based on the iRacing stewarding system. Well, Cawte is going to have to give up the time by the time he gets to the hairpin. If he doesn't give it up before he gets to turn 13, it will be upgraded into a black flag, and that will be a drive-through penalty that he'll have to serve for the misdemeanor. But I think he'll burn it there. He will into the turn 11-12 chicane, so we get out of the way quite nicely as we now take a look back at what exactly happened to our Ford Mustang of Brandon Dyer. So he was battling at the time with, I believe that was Leon Seeley, and coming up into the next bend, the rear is going to go light here. It's going to go round, and that's happened before. Oh, interesting. So it went round, and unfortunately there, your Mercedes driver, I believe that was Elliot Cawte who was coming through. He could not react to that. We get on board with regards to Elliot Cawte. This is what it looked like from his perspective. Now, close fighting between these three, so it's going to be very hard to react at this distance. What you're going to see very shortly, that Ford is going to start to go. There go the brakes, and at that point, Cawte's got nowhere to go. He's already on the brakes or on his line. If he was to try and snatch the car to the right, he would have gone straight to the barrier on the outside, but he did take a huge amount of the sausage curve there. Cawte getting away with that one, but losing the places there to Charlie Walker and also the other relentless racing car, I believe, of Bradley Setters. But back to your live racing we go. But a big one, that one. Oh, we come back, and that is going to be Elliot Cawte spinning to the barrier in contact there with Brad Pickett. My goodness, we're just talking about the man surviving a near miss, and suddenly he doesn't survive that one. And well, he's going to lose a lot of places as a result, as Brandon Dyer now battling again with Jared Love. So Love's coming back through the order. He says, right, it's time for me to get a move on here. He's not wasted any time. He battles to the inside versus the inter driver. It's going to be 13th place, and Dyer right now is flying out there versus the drivers around him. He's picking up a lot of time, a lot of places, and well, I think he's driving a little bit angry. He's going to be like a bull to a matador right now, and indeed the red cape is being shown in front of him, and it's all the places he wants to take back. He tries to get it together. Philip Harris behind, the club leader right now. I think the Eurotitans endurance driver must be every lap saying Hail Mary, Hail Grace, because of the simple reason, if he is a religious man, because the way he's been able to survive a lot of incidents around him, he's not been caught up anything, and he has taken that club lead off of Rob Gregg, who had it all go wrong for him at the hairpin, and a side-by-side contact Mark Collicott. I think Harris here just mindful of the fact that right now he does not want to throw away what is a golden opportunity to take his first club win of the season. As the field further back is spreading out, well, things are tightening in this med pack still. Nicholas Carlson just in front of Harris. There's an example of how close it's getting. Collicott following behind, but Luke van Goertel with a 7.2 seconds gap right now, continuing just to storm away close to the pit wall there. And I wonder whether that's A, to cool down the tyres, but also B, perhaps he exits for a much tighter line out of Panasonic Bend just to be able to get the better traction. He improves the fastest lap overall to a 48.82. He is absolutely roaring away as Luke van Goertel. And at 212 Porsche right now, I think everyone's going to be wondering, was that car ever checked for its balance of performance? And the answer is yes, it was. Right now, we are really looking at the Michael Schumacher of the grid here today. As Niels Buckarget sits in at second place. Well, he's keeping a comfortable gap there to Ben Woodgate, and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis is a bit further back. Indeed, right now, after his big spin, the Samantha Racing driver, well, to be fair, I think he's feeling echoes from Spa-Francorchamps, because many of you may not have known, he did have a big spin in the wet weather. We didn't catch it on the broadcast, but he talked to me about it afterwards, and then he was able to recover because he had a lot of pace in the wet, because they tweaked the setup in the pit lane, which they're allowed to do. They changed the rear wing, and that was enough for STR to be able to help this man get to the very front of the field right at the end of the race when everyone else was losing their cool around. But meanwhile, we are not going to be losing our cool unless this ends up in tears, because here's Jack Giles versus Ashley Coutland, and it's going to the battle of two German marks. But I believe we are going to see Coutland gradually outdrag that Porsche, with the Mercedes having a little bit more straight line speed, although it is noticeable the fact the Porsches here today actually very quick on the straight compared to other cars, not only as quick. And what I do wonder whether that Porsche perhaps has lost a bit of its potency in the wet, but it's gained perhaps a little bit more straight line. But of course, it could be differences in rear wing setup, it could be differences in gearing as well. There are so many different conundrums out there, as we have had Steve Hughes come into the pit lane, and indeed he's had to tow to the pit lane. I think that was a problem with the car, and well, Hughes may be out of this race for the time being. As meanwhile, well, he's out and around. That Schubert Cardozo's got around at the Dunlop chicane hairpin, and as he gets it back onto the grass there to get out of the way, at turn number 11 he'll rejoin, but it's going to put him a long way down. And Sam Hockley's going to go around him, and Hockley here will clear him just about. And here comes Raz Harper. He'll also go around the outside, but that's going to be the lots there. He won't be able to let anyone else go as Elliot Cawte tries to squeeze his way through after that incident at turn number 1. Well, the DDK with RaceStatBot.com driver, a big fan of track days here in the IT Kingdom, as you can see there by his profile photo. I do believe that's an old Formula Ford around Thruxton. I'm going to take the guess of the corner there. That's at Campbell, if not Seagrave, I believe, and I'm sure he'll fill me in if not. And well, the British driver right now making his way onwards. But as he does so, well, we do look back to Max Dean. And Dean right now, yes, he is a lap down on the overall leaders, almost. You can see them there in the rear of the picture. But the one point being right now for Max Dean, he is looking quite quick out there as he battles with Ashley Shucksmith for 6th place in the club class. So don't rule him out. He may be able to find his way back into this one. And indeed, you can see Luke van Goertel and Niels Buckarget. Well, in fact, Buckarget is in front, and van Goertel's already 9 seconds down the road by comparison. But Max Dean definitely keeping his head down here. We'll have to wait and see how he fits back into the equation. But with 31 minutes still to go on the final lap, anything is possible before this race is over. Indeed, when the rain comes back, it's forecasted to, it's not going to go away. The rain could definitely upset a few drivers here, as me or Bradley Setz runs very wide there out of 100R and gets passed by the machine Nicholas Carlson, and Philip Harris is going to brave it around the outside, but here comes Mark Collicott going low. Oh, it's getting a little bit, it's close and tasty. Keep it clean, guys, as they make their way down towards the Dunlop hairpin. And right now, Philip Harris, well, he gets ahead of both of them, and here comes Collicott looking up the inside of Harris as well. So Collicott right now has got the pace, and he goes a little bit deep, just clips through Harris's car, but no damage, no spin there for Harris. And Harris right now, if he's not aware, I think he would have felt the tiniest of taps there, but indeed that could have been the difference between him leading the club class and going spinning around. He does have quite a gap to Christopher Petty down in 26th place, but it only takes one instant and it'll send him backwards. But Collicott there wanted to get ahead of Bradley Setters. He got it done, and Setters has fallen backwards. In fact, Cole Roy has squeezed through, and right now these club and Inter drivers, they all step on each other's toes, and well, we absolutely love to see it so long as they keep it nice and clean. But to be fair, I can tell you one thing right now, this is butt clenchingly tight between the ball, and well, there's even more to come. And I think on board with these drivers, you can imagine they're probably absolutely holding on for dear life, but also the adrenaline is going to be absolutely pumping. And the Access and Sports with Simworks driver Cole Roy, we ride on board with him. He's just got a face full of spray. He can't actually see the corner. And we understand we're slightly off the where the driver sits. We're in the right-hand side of the cockpit, whereas he's on the left-hand side. So the spray there really exaggerated for us. He had a little bit more visibility by comparison, but he needs all the visibility he can get here as he tries to attack Collicott for 6th place in Inter and make a bit more progress. Sam Hockley, as I look at my Conte booth window, comes into pit lane. So he makes his way in from 25th place. And I think the design here will be just to take on the fuel and perhaps put on a fresh set of wet tyres. Now, you could do a bit of a gamble here with regards to strategy today, and what are we thinking in terms of strategy is the big question you might be asking. Well, the thing is, if we know that weather is coming back, if we know the rain is returning and this circuit is not drying up enough, you know it's going to be wet tyres every step of the way. And, well, if you do come in a little bit earlier, we're not expecting there's going to be enough time to put a whole new set of wet tyres on. That would be 28 seconds. And alongside the fuel that's going in, it's done in parallel, you are looking at probably 2 tyres being changed. But if you change them now, you're going to have cold, wet tyres that are going to warm up a little bit quicker compared to how they will in the wet conditions later on. But more on that shortly, because we've got Ben Woodgate having to defend versus Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. And right now, MTD attacking. Oh, and he gets it very sideways. Oh, my goodness. And I think in the end, he just clipped what was the exit white line out of turn 16 with a rear left tyre. And in the end, had to snap the car one way. And how on earth he did not end up in the barrier on the inside. That is credit to the 329 driver. That was a catch of the season. I'll tell you one thing, if he doesn't play cricket in his spare time, he might want to consider it, because you can catch a car like that, you can catch a ball as well. But meanwhile, Richard Simnor having to go defensively on Seedy on the attack here. And Seedy right now, well, I think he's got a bit to bite with regards to this move, and he wants that place back. Samantha Racing right now, despite all their success, are definitely finding themselves up against the odds today if they want to try and make it a 1 to at least get one of the drivers onto the podium, let alone the class winning pro, as we do show those class standings once again. And you can see that right now they are running 3rd and 5th respectively, and Simnor is going to be filling the STR sandwich, and he does not want to leave there. I think he feels he's got the confidence to stay ahead of Seely, but Seely getting closer and closer, going through 100R, looking to the inside. Is he going to go for it into the hairpin? The answer is no. The car's sliding loose a little bit and just keeping it pinned as best he possibly can as he rolls on around. Meanwhile, we do look back to Raz Harper, and he has got none other than Chris Cole just in front of him for 11th place in pro, and then Daniel Page is 4.4 seconds back between them. That's the lap down car there of Denny Ploger right now, down in 9th in the club class. He's had a very frustrating day after the simultaneous spins of himself and Arno Prague, his teammate at Next Bend earlier on, and sent him a long way down the field. But here's Rob Gregg, being passed by Adrian Howard. That won't be for club position, it'll be for overall position as the Interdrive goes up the inside. And the Moonshine's Racing Club 1, 2, 3 right now, letting that go. And Greg here, after leading the race for quite some time, let it go, of course, by the incident between himself and Mark Collicott at the hairpin. And since then now trying to piece things back together. Are we seeing any transitions in terms of the pacer drives right now? Well, one thing we're definitely seeing is that lap times are going a bit longer now. Luke van Gertel, 49.73 his previous lap. Niels Balkaga, meanwhile, here's your pro leader, heads across the line at 50.6. So they are losing some time with the slight drying of the circuit. But I think now everyone wants to get to the point where the rain's going to return, and then they're going to try and get onto a new set of wet tyres. As Bobby Moss comes in from 2nd place at the interclass, and as he makes his way down, we look to the overall standings. And right now, this is by design here. I think the game plan is what we were saying earlier. They want to get the fuel in the car, and they want to get the fresh wet tyres on. At least they're going to change, and it's probably going to be 2, and it'll be the tyres on the left-hand side of the car, but given this is a clockwise circuit, so you've got more right-handers than left-handers, so it's the left-hand tyres that do the work. And well, he wants those fresh wet tyres on now, so we can heat them up quite quickly, because this is a drying circuit. It's not got more water coming, so therefore it's naturally getting slightly warmer to the touch. Well, there's plenty of water out there to cool those tyres down, and it will nicely bring those tyres up to temperature for when the rain arrives, and he won't have that difficulty. But of course, the gamble with this strategy is he risks coming out into traffic. And here he goes down the pit lane. Where is he coming out? Christopher Petty makes his way down the start finish straight, and in fact, I think the SimRacing Collective have nailed this, because he will head to the pit limiter line. If he gets out ahead of Petty here, it's going to be close. I think he's going to literally just pip them. Well, for Bobby Moss, this is perfect. He has now got clear track in front of him, and Petty's not going to be able to get through. And remember, Petty has yet to pit. So right now, keep your eyes on the 255 driver. He should be safe for the time being. He's going to pump in some good laps, but that's at least the full process. Could he be on course for 2nd place here? Could he even spring a surprise and chase down Luke van Gertel? Well, I think, to be fair, he's going to do so. He's going to need to pull some magical laps. But to be fair, magic has happened before in this series, and I'm sure it's going to happen again. But the battles have calmed down for a little bit, unless your name is actually Shucksmith for Max Dean, as Dean there goes very wide, takes the tourist line through at turn number 16. I think the battle for 6th place in the club class right now will go to Shucksmith for a brief moment. And intriguingly, the priority in the 172 not quite having the wet weather performance that we did see at Spa-Francorchamps. But to be fair, there it was about dry setups going to a wet lap times. Meanwhile here, we really have seen a mixture of setups, and I suspect most drivers have set the cars up for wet weather conditions. I think some will have pushed a little bit towards what we pseudo-wet, given the fact we have had this dry spell, and therefore the circuit's been getting a little bit further alive. But meanwhile, Leon Seeley looking around the outside of Richard Simnor on the lead lap. Simnor still defending for 5th place overall, 4th in pro. Seeley cannot find a way through it, and the same for Tomlinson-Dennis versus Woodgate. Right now, the STR cars being made to wait, but of course they can do some fuel saving behind, but understandably I think they want to get that lap time. That's what they really want here, and they are catching up to that battle for 6th place in club that's going to go a lap down. And well, the blue flags will be waving both Shuck Smith and Dean, but I expect that Shuck Smith right now will be taking logic, which is until my rival gives up, I'm not going to obey those blue flags, because Dean's got to do it first. He's the first one that the leaders have got to pass, and indeed it sounds like they're kids on the school playground when they take that logic, but that's how they'll race. Indeed, the racer's mentality definitely is very strong in the fact that if you can take an advantage, you're going to take it, and Dean in the end is going to have to let the leaders go. There he does, as they come down in towards the hairpin. He releases both what is the machinery of Ben Woodgate and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, and now he's going for Richard Simnor and Leon Seeley, expecting the same, but I suspect it will happen on the start-finish straight. In fact, no, he steps wide there coming out of turn number 12, and well, he's going to give all the space then to turn 13, so sacrifices a lot of time this time, but does the right thing, and indeed now he can focus on chasing after Dean, or in fact chasing after his rival Shuck Smith, I should say, and Shuck Smith is going to have to deal with all those drivers as they make their way down the straight. And as they do, well, we come back to Nicholas Carlson. He's with Brandon Dyer at the moment. These two fighting over 11th place overall, with Philip Harris, the club leader, just behind. We do have a black flag, by the way, we have spotted for Raz Harper. That will be for instant point. I think Harper has been involved in a bit of an incident. We will come to that very shortly. We've still got 23 minutes and a final lap of this race to go. But still, we come back to your top 3 runners in the pro class, and Wills Niels Buckarget has run away. Meanwhile, Woodgate here ahead of Tomlinson-Dennis, and Dennis looking around the outside. Woodgate's going to go defensive, but Shuck Smith's on that outside line. I think here Tomlinson-Dennis has been boxed in a little bit, but Woodgate's not confident with the corner. I think on that inside line, he was so narrow to the line. Understandably, the car, he's got to really feather it through the bend. So Tomlinson-Dennis doesn't lose out as much as he perhaps could as we ride on board with a 329 driver. Shuck Smith there on the inside. This is going to get very crowded through the corner, and Shuck Smith right now has got nowhere to go, but Tomlinson-Dennis makes the overtake there, so Shuck Smith just keeps it nice and tight, does the right thing, and Richard Simnor and Leon Seeley are going to squeeze on through. Shuck Smith's going to go very wide that 100R. And well, will he be cleared by Leon Seeley? The answer is no. Seeley tucks to the inside. He wants to fight through. He needs to stay with Simnor is his argument. So therefore, he'll be grateful for the fact that Shuck Smith has not put up too much of a blocking fight. But understandably right now, Shuck Smith's going to be under pressure because behind there is Max Dean. And Dean's trying to come back as they make the way down towards the hairpin. Onto the brakes, they get ready to go. And well, as they head in towards that braking zone, what is Dean going to do? The answer is he's not going to be able to find a way, and he snakes a little bit there. I think the front left tire just touching the white line on the outside. It just unsettled the car a little bit. But Dean wants that move. He's got the conviction, but he's got to get that final 5% to be able to make the magic happen. Further back, Jordan Butler does have Jack Giles battling him for 3rd place in the club class. Neither of these drivers yet to pit. John Butler missing the front bumper. That will not be helping him. Well, let's say that's going to be Full Tilt Virtual Motorsports aims of weight reduction to the car as they make their way up towards turn number 3, but he will be picking up a lot more aerodynamic drag as he heads in towards Coca-Cola Bend. We do say hello there to Ryan Nickerson in the YouTube chat, who asks what has happened to the Master Stream. And well, just hold the phone on that one, Ryan, because we do have a bit of run wire there from Butler, and well, Giles is not going to be able to seize on that. And to answer your question, unfortunately, Chaz is not available this week. He's on holiday at the moment, a well-deserved rest. So therefore, what's going to happen with the Master Stream is that we'll be presenting it to you as if it were live on Saturday this weekend, on Saturday the 25th of April, and I'll be covering it on the behalf of Chaz. And unfortunately, Dara's not with me in the commentary booth this evening. He was going to join, but unfortunately something that's come up at short notice. But they're all well, I can promise you that, and you can expect that Chaz and Dara will be back together in the commentary booth for the Masters as of next round. So hopefully that fills you in, but you're going to have to live with me covering the Masters this Saturday, unfortunately. Or fortunately, depending on your preference, but I'm sure you'll all love to be back with Chaz and Dara next week. But as we do see John Butler and Jack Giles heading up the hill, right now we do look back to Villa Katona and Martin Kenyon, as Kenyon's going to dive up the inside there, and well, both of these drivers have visited the pit lane, albeit Katona making a pit stop much earlier on, and now as they fight their way for 8th place in the interclass, well, it's going to be Katona having to go very defensive, and Kenyon's on that outside line. That's not going to work out, and Raz Harper now plays part of the party as we see your pro driver there trying to go inside to outside, and Martin Kenyon defending it hard as they roll the wound through. But the 222 driver carefully keeping it together right now as they make the wound down the straight. But, of course, now the problem he's got is that Elliot Cawte is literally so close that he can't even use the slipstream. He's that close. He's got to pull out immediately through the risk of overspeed. As here comes the rain again. There it is on your camera, ladies and gentlemen. The cameras do not lie. And as they make the wound down, Elliot Cawte right now definitely in a position whereby, unfortunately, it's going to be a slippery surface on that inside. Well, it'll be fine for now as he's going to go into the braking zone. Oh my god, he touches the pit exit line there and just about holds it together. I thought that was going to go very sideways. I thought him and Kenya were going to see a big brush with the barrier, but not quite so. Cawte at the end, through bravery and absolute sheer will, makes the 8th place in the interclass, but not without a big scare. But meanwhile, Luke van Goertel comes into the pits on the lead of the race. Niels Balkhagen makes his way onwards, so the pro leader takes the overall lead for a moment, but I think Luke van Goertel is taking our approach, which is what we mentioned earlier, which is as soon as the rain returns, come in and get the fresh tyres on, as Balkhagen goes very deep there at the hairpin and brings it back together, but this circuit's going to get slippery once more. But Leon Seeley still trying to battle his way around Richard Simnor. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, meanwhile, has dropped down the order since we've last seen him, so we're going to get a replay of what's happened to him, as he's fallen all the way back to 6th place. And here is your SimRacing Racing driver who's got Leighton Austin for close company, so I think he's had another moment. And what exactly caused that moment is the question. We'll get an answer to that shortly. Austin looks up the inside, and Tomlinson-Dennis there chops off the nose of Austin and simply says to him, well, you're not alongside coming into the corner, so therefore I'm going to take the gamble no matter how much you lunge it. And in the end, Leighton Austin cannot do it. His bluff is called, and Tomlinson-Dennis holds on to that 6th place. But how he got there, here's a quick replay to explain. So this was battling side by side with Richard Simnor, and Leon Seeley was right there with them. So Tomlinson-Dennis had lost out versus was the Aston Martin in front of it, and then contact with Simnor coming in towards turn number 12. Well, there's going to be question marks there on the legality of that contact in terms of, was it right for Tomlinson-Dennis to be turning in, or was it right for Simnor to be there? This is what it looked like on board from Richard Simnor's perspective as he made his way through the corner. Now too wide on exit, and he's going to switch the inside here looking for the move. And well, as he looks for it, goes up the inside. I get the feeling, again, the camera angle's not perfect, but something tells me that I think Simnor's got to look back at that one and probably think, was I really alongside to go for that move? That would be Tomlinson-Dennis' argument. Simnor may feel as though he was justified to be there. It's very hard on those camera angles, but that's going to be the big question mark there. But definitely, the question will always be how much overlap, and therefore the stewards will take a look at that one. But I'm not going to give my thoughts on that one either way or the other, because I definitely think it's a bit of a contentious one, a tricky one to gauge just on those two camera angles we have. Meanwhile, as we come back to your live racing, Richard Simnor making his way away, and Charlie Walker carries on as Simnor's into pit lane, and Tomlinson-Dennis will follow what will be Walker down the start finish straight. So they're still carrying on with that rain falling, and well, we're still waiting to see how all the pit stops will play out. Now, of course, Luke van Goertel has come back out here in 2nd place and into that's 10th overall. As he makes his way on down, well, he's going to have Nicholas Carlson behind. Now, will he worry about Carlson? Well, the answer is yes, he does have to worry, because he does not want to be put down behind another club driver, given the fact that driver has yet to pit. It will cost him natural race time. As Mark Collicott, battling side by side with Philip Harris, again, battling with the club leader, settles into the pit lane. Simnor is making his way out of pit lane right now, I believe. In fact, the car is still being serviced in there, so I'll correct myself. Is definitely been looked after, and now it's on its way to the pit exit. So Simnor's going to make his way back out, and I suspect more pit stops are coming shortly, as we do see a repaired car there for Jordan Butler, stepping aside for Collicott and also for Harris. And well, the club driver doing great work to be aware of what's going on. But what exactly is going on in the rest of your top 5 in the club class? And well, the answer is that Christopher Petty right now still holds 2nd place. He's been there for some time, and he heads down, and Jack Giles is a bit further back as he makes his way on down the straight, but the gap between the two is 3.5 seconds. And then we do have Rob Gregg a whole 30 seconds behind. In fact, that doesn't look like it at all. I think that might be a glitch there with our information. In fact, it's now been updated, and well, it's playing tricks on me, ladies and gentlemen. 6 seconds behind he is, and well, right now your 1-2-3 driver here still trying to chase down that win, or at least a sniff of a podium, given the fact he was in the lead until it all went very wrong at the hairpin early on. Max Dean currently in 5th place in the class, still battling with Ashley Shucksmith. And these two right now absolutely joined at the hip. And they've been fighting like this literally since the start of the race. And, well, they have still both got to come into the pits, we believe, with a strategic stop. They have both visited the pit lane already. Dean on lap number 3, Shucksmith on lap number 10. I don't think they're going to be able to go the distance here, although they could prove us wrong, to be fair, given the fact these fuel tanks do go quite a distance with the 75% regulation for this season. But also do keep in mind, in these wet weather conditions, you do use a lot less fuel compared to in the dry. And the simple reason is because you cannot have the throttle down for as long. You're not going as quick around the circuit, particularly the on-corner exit. So therefore, fuel saving, if you do it, would a no-stop be possible around here? I don't think it's a no-stop race, but I definitely think you are looking at a splash and dash pit stop at most. So therefore, it could mean that some drivers will come into the pits and they will not change their tyres. They will stay on the same wet tyres that they started on. Even though they're not feeling too comfortable, those wet tyres will definitely be feeling quite threadbare. But the idea is you are not going to gain anything in terms of pit stop time. You're only going to lose it, and will track position may be more key when more rain is falling. Let's wait and see who plays that game, who's the smartest one in the pit lane and who's not, as Bobby Moster carries his way on down after that early pit stop on lap number 18. Nicholas Carlson now makes his way to the pit exit, leaves his pit box, and off the pit limiter line he goes. And as he does so, well, he re-emerges, and that is effective third place in the interclass, in the fact that Luke van Goertel's already pitted and is already in 9th place. So there's a bit of a change. And we do say hello to Matt Watkins, who asked the question, where's the Master Stream? And, well, as we mentioned to Ryan Nixon a little bit earlier on, and the Master Stream is not happening today. It's going to be a post-round broadcast on Saturday, and I'll be presenting and commentating on, ladies and gentlemen, as Chaz is on holiday, a well-deserved break. And, well, you'll be back with Chaz and Dara next week, and they'll be bringing all your race action from round number 5 of the Championship in the Masters. Indeed, I'll be standing in for them this weekend. But as Nicholas Carlson makes his way on down, well, meanwhile, we do look to none other than the machinery. Well, who do we look to now? We do look back up to Andy Jones, and Jones has come all the way up the order. Looks like Goertel's trying to make his way on past him. And with DCW Racing Blue Dry here side by side as they come down the stretch. But as they do, well, Jones here is going to make his way on around in an Acura that's definitely looking quite quick on the straight here. Although Van Goertel has pitted, this is going to be a fight that's not really worth anything to either driver. Although Van Goertel does want to get clear, and he's only 2 seconds behind Jared Love at the moment. So Van Goertel absolutely on a mission right now. And well, remember, Van Goertel was leading overall before his pit stop. It was an interleader, and could this be the first time in a long time that we are going to see a driver of what is a sub-tier class, not the top tier, taken over a win? And the last time it happened, many of you may remember, was in Split B, their visit to Mazzano in Season 9, if my memory serves me correctly, where we saw the absolute chaos and carnage in the second sprint race, and in the end it was 3 Evo drivers who took the top 3 spots there, whereas meanwhile what was at the time, your Premier drivers all struggled and floundered in the wet, but the Evo drivers did not. Well, we'll have to wait and see whether Luke van Goertel can make history for this season. And indeed, I believe this will be the first time we've ever seen in a 60-minute race where a non-top class driver has taken an overall win in the Thursday GT3 Championship, and he is absolutely hustling for it. And meanwhile, that's gone around there for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis as the field spreads around in the Samantha Racing driver's gone for a spin, and was not happy one, I can tell you that right now, as Jared Love comes through and Van Goertel queues up behind. Well, that's the 3rd spin now, the 3rd instant for Tomlinson-Dennis, but how exactly has that happened? That's the question, and all the good luck and positivity that's been coming so far this season, well, it seems to run out here today at Fuji. He's had 3 rounds of success, and right now he's come up against his first hardships, and it's about how he reacts to this now that is going to be critical. Heading up the hill, and well, Andy Jones with him, so Jones will be attacking him now for position. They are on the same strategy, they've both yet to pit, but meanwhile Nils Balkaga has come into the pits on the lead overall. Ben Woodgate comes in, Leon Seeley comes in, they're all peeling in here. They've got as long as they can. They've decided they want to run the fuel tank dry, so Leighton Austin surely will be coming in. Yes, he is. Jared Love's not coming in, however. Jared Love goes another lap. Now, does Love think that perhaps he can go a bit longer? Has he been fuel saving that much? And if so, will Luke van Goertel right now start to worry a little bit? He'll be thinking to himself, with all the leaders are coming in, why is the interleader not coming in right now? Surely he's got to come in. There's a 1.5 second gap between the two of them. Van Goertel does have between him and Jared Love. What is the car there of, I believe, that is Rob Gregg, 5th place runner in the club class. So Van Goertel's just got to hold the faith and wait to see if Love does come into the pit lane. If not, he'll have to pass him on circuit. But at that point, you'd understand if you think that Love is going to be driving what would be a couple of seconds a lap slower, and therefore he would not be able to match Van Goertel for pace if he was going for a no-stop strategy. But I think Love's just been that conservative with his fuel load that he's been able to go this distance, as we are starting to see all of our leaders come out of the pit lane. And, well, Nils Barkaga back out there, and he is back into the effective lead of the pro class, presuming that Andy Jones does have the pit. As we know, that's a car going straight on there. That is Jordan Butler of Coca-Cola Bend, who in the end I think went straight on, slid loose, and has brought it back on, and has made a bit of a hand for that one. But meanwhile, as more plays out, well, we've got a bit of an instant to take a look back with regards to Martin Kenyon on lap 22, as we say hello to him in the YouTube chat. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen, for a trip back in time. So this was Kenyan at the time, making his way down towards the hairpin, and as he did so, what exactly went wrong here? Well, that's coming up very quick. The DDK Racing Ford Mustang straight into the back of it there, and well, that is an absolute bruiser, no doubt about it, and that was the car, I believe, of Raz Harper. Missed his braking zone, and in the end, having to go straight into the back of Lamborghini, had nowhere to go, unfortunately, and I think Raz Harper's definitely been in a few incidents today. I think this has not been the happiest day for him. But we had this for Richard Simnor as well on lap number 25. This was Simnor in control, Simnor his own destiny after his contact with Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. Very sideways there through 100R, went out wide, and the car went spinning around the wrong way. He rolled it backwards, and well done to Ashley Cooper there for a reactive time. I think Simnor at that point was really subject to the pendulum effect of the mid-engine real drive nature of the car, whereby the weight was sloshing around in the back, and well, thankfully it did not end up in the two having contact, but that was a scary boat for them. We also did have this from Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, and remember we said his third spin of the day, and this is what happened. It was coming down in towards the braking zone for the hairpin. On the SimRacing Racing drive. Oh, and Max Dean lost it, and did he bounce off the wall? He did. He came straight into the side of Tomlinson-Dennis. At that point, he had no control, and MTD's going to probably think to himself, what on earth happened there? He's going to look back afterwards to realise it, but in the heat of the boat, he's probably going to be absolutely fuming in the cockpit of the car, and I would be too, ladies and gentlemen, but Max Dean, I'm sure, will apologise to him afterwards and say there was nothing I could do at that point. Indeed, when the car goes like that, you are a passenger. But back to live racing we come, and in good time as well, because with pit stops playing out, and Ludwig Goetzel has made it back into the lead with Jared Love pitting. Well, Leon Seeley right now being pushed by Ben Woodgate. He has made the move on Woodgate. And just before we come back to your live racing, and now he's into second in pro, and we're still 8.5 minutes to go. Woodgate and Walker queuing up behind, and we ride on board, looking down over the nose of the 308 Charlie Walker, who wants to try and take on one of the podium spots in the pro class, but it's not going to be easy as they make the way out of the hairpin. Bringing the power on the Ford Mustang drive right now, looking one way then the other, and really is the battle of three different machines, all V8 powered here, albeit spot the odd one out. It is the one, the Aston Martin with the turbo, and well, Walker trying to go around the outside here. Is he going to be able to get it done? He goes deep, and in the end Woodgate making it a defensive offense there, attacking Seeley on the inside whilst also fend off Charlie Walker. That's one way to go about it. Walker tries to get the traction, but unfortunately too much wheel spin there for the Ford Mustang coming out of turn 11. Can't quite get the power down as they now crawl the way out the hill in towards next bend. I'm hearing there's been a further incident for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis off camera. He's dropping down to 8th place now in the pro class. We'll try and see if we can get a replay of that later on. But indeed, drama for our championship leader, but this battle right now could have championship connotations. Seeley tries to hold off Woodgate and Walker for a little bit longer. Niels Balkarget, meanwhile, is pulling away for NJP for once. The gap is now 4 seconds, and well, he'll be grateful if these three continue to fight each other, as it will just simply buy him more and more time. But onwards they go. Well, Bolinos is much further behind. Won't be getting involved in this one anytime soon. Let's head down the straight. Well, this was how the move was made by what was Leon Seeley to take on Ben Woodgate and move into that second place in the pro class, as we do take a quick look back. So this was heading down the start-finish straight. Woodgate pinning his car to the wall. Seeley saying, all right, if you're going to do that, I'll peel to the inside, but I'll keep you nice and tight. And Seeley here been a bit cheeky, but you're allowed to do this. And then peeled out, and then the pit exit line was there. So they were too wide under braking. How did he get it done? Well, Woodgate in the end outbroke himself into the corner. We've seen this several times from different drivers up and down the grid. And Leon Seeley in the end powering his way on past. But he may have made that move happen. But then what exactly happened to Milton Tomlinson-Dennis in the interim? And we all went very backwards for him. But what exactly did happen for his fourth spin of the day, or his fourth instant we should say? Well, here's a replay to explain that. So this was at the same place where it went wrong previously, but no Max Dean coming to the side of him on this one. This was by his lonesome, I suspect. Went into the corner, and the rear just completely switched round on him. Now I suspect he's got damage to that car, and I wouldn't be surprised if the damage is going to hold him up there, or in terms of compromise his ability to control the car. So an intriguing one there, but it's back to live racing we come. And I doubt we're getting too much more replays now, ladies and gentlemen, because we are into the final throes of the race. Speaking of which, well, here's always a bit of a civil war at DCW Racing, because that is the DCW Racing blue machine of Andy Jones trying to put a move on Richard Simnor for 6th place in the class as they all head up the hill. Well, behind him is Nicholas Carlson at your 4th place running into, and he wants them to get a bit of a hurry up, although he's got no pressure on Mark Collicott behind, because Collicott is the best part of 16 seconds adrift. So therefore, at the moment, I think for Jones and Simnor, they're going to enjoy this one, but the Acura driver not quite able to find his way past there, but I think he'll be itching for another battle with his Corvette friend a little bit later on the next lap or so. As we are running out of laps, we've got some black flags as well. Brad Pickett's picked up a drive-through penalty for instant points. Ashley Koopman's done the same as well. He's in the pit lane at the moment, so therefore instant points could be a bit critical between drivers. And well, what's happened off camera is we have seen Rob Great drop a long way down the order. He's dropped down to 8th place behind his teammate James Fraser in club. Here they are. There's Greg, and then here's Fraser heading up the hill. And, well, they'll be chasing after Denny Ploger. Ploger is 21 seconds up the road, so I think it's going to be a distant dream to catch him unless he has the absolute mother of all mistakes. From there, we come back to Brandon Dyer. He's got Philip Harris behind, the club leader, trying to go for 13th place overall here, trying to take on the pro driver. And, well, Harris doesn't need to do this. He's well clear of his club rivals, but he wants to do this. And in the end, he outbreaks himself into the corner, and Brandon Dyer will take that back. Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained, and in the end, didn't quite work out, but he didn't make a mistake over it in terms of end up in the barrier. So I think Harris will be happy with that one. But I'm sure the Euro Titan Endurance team will be on the radio to him saying, Phil, we know you want overall places, we know you're faster than Dyer, but is it really worth it? And, well, he's got to stop listening to the devil on his shoulder saying, yes, it is, every place is invaluable. As he heads up the hill, he's still going to fight here with Dyer as he makes his way up towards the hairpin. He's going to go for it here. And right now, Philip Harris is throwing his Porsche up the inside. And Dyer then has to give him the space. Opens up the steering wheel a bit too aggressive there, does Brandon Dyer, and actually almost goes around at the hairpin. So I think Dyer decided, you know what, it's not worth it. And then realised that he can't just do that. As meanwhile, that's going straight on there for Nicholas Carlson as he takes the trip wide. He doesn't lose any place in Inter, but... And, well, he loses a bit of time there to Jared Love, who is only 3 seconds up the road. So Love is at the head of this long pack right now, trying to stay away from it. Simnor, Jones and Tomlinson-Dennis are getting very close together. And, well, Jared Love will be hoping he can hold on for third place in the interclass right now. He can't afford a single mistake, otherwise he's going to be sent a long way back. And, well, after his heroics to make his way back into third in class, well, right now he would not want to fight away and make himself the villain of his own day. Going on towards that start finish straight, your leader, Luke Van Gertel, already, I believe, making his way through the 100R. Here he is, and that means with this lap plus another 2, we have got 33 laps on the cards. But we leave him because we got a battle. Ben Woodgate on the inside, Charlie Walker. Well, Charlie Walker in the end practicing social distance into the extreme, it would seem, into the braking zone. I think he's just cut it a little bit wide on the braking. But Woodgate will take that third place in pro, and Walker doesn't really get the opportunity to offer a defence there because Woodgate just simply sneaking up the inside, and Walker taking himself out of his own battle. As we look back from the rear of the Inter-Racing team car, that spray absolutely opaque as it can be seen. And we can just see the headlights there of the relentless racing car as the rain is still falling. But we do have a bit of sunshine out there at the moment, so that will just mean this circuit dries up a little bit. And it is quite spotty and light rain at the moment around the circuits. This circuit is still remaining quite quick, although it's definitely wet tyre territory. Nobody will go on slicks at this point. That would be tantamount to disaster. Right now, here comes Charlie Walker trying to come back after his disastrous defence at turn 1. Woodgate goes defensive. Walker looking around the outside into the hairpin. On to the race they go, and, well, Walker a lot more confident on the outside, but Woodgate in has to nurse it through, and that's going to see Walker dive on the inside. They rub, they touch. There's going to be more contact through turn number 12. Woodgate says you can't just squeeze me off the road, and Walker gives him the space at the end, but we definitely have to be a bit forceful there, and Walker does get on through. Goes very sideways there through turn number 13, but to be fair, Charlie Walker risked it all, and he's earned it at the end of the day, and Woodgate right now will try to come back at him. They'll definitely fight each other on the next lap. If not into Panasonic Bend, I would be surprised if Ben decides right now he's going to do the exact same back and says, try this off the side, Charlie. And he does exactly that. Tosses out the inside the Panasonic Bend. As long as they keep it clean and respectful, we don't mind that. These two right now, well, I think some red tempers are falling on them. And remember, they've got 2 more laps to go based on where our leader is at the moment, as Van Gertel has already gone on to lap 32. We'll see a 33rd lap as well. But these two right now deliver an absolutely brilliant battle for the final spot on the pro podium. They head on down. And Walker's Ford Mustang just having the edge on the straight. You can see they're inching its nose ahead. Of course, he's on that tricky inside line. He brings the car over, making sure to clear the pit exit line. Onto the brakes here. Now Woodgate will find he's going to try and have to go all the way around the houses. That's not going to work. Off camera, we do have a black flag, and therefore a drive-through penalty for Steve Kershaw, who's made his way into the pit. Now, I think he's actually sped in the pit lane whilst coming into the pit, so therefore he's now added another black flag to his race. So Kershaw's going to drop a long way down. He's currently down in none other than 11th place in Inter, down in 31st overall. Needs to be relegated even further down if our timing information is correct. So that's very unfortunate for Kershaw, as Woodgate continue to fight. And right now, Walker gets the upper hand in this battle, at least for now. Meanwhile, we see what Milton Tomlinson-Dennis all over the back of Andy Jones, and Simnor will be grateful for this because his teammates now got to do some rear guard action. Although I get the feeling that Jones would ideally like to move the cat livery forward, but nothing's quite perfect in the world. And, well, goodness me, I just pulled that out of nowhere, and I do apologise, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, the dad jokes can never be put quite aside. As they come down through turn number 5 into 6 and on towards 7. Right now, Tomlinson-Dennis here having to be quite patient in a car that's definitely sporting some damage, and it's not going to quite work out for the Lamborghini driver here. He may have to settle for the 8th place in pro at the moment, unless Jones makes an error or he can find a bit of an advantage. Elliot Cawte, he's still trying to attack Chris Cole here for 11th place in the Pro class. But as he comes up through into turn 7, 8 and 9, right now Cole keeping at bay. With the battles ongoing, we do see Ashley Shucksmith here. He's caught up to the back of Jack Giles, so he's made a lot of progress. In fact, he's going to make a move here for third. This will be for the podium club. He goes on the brakes, very tight line. Where is Giles? Well, he goes for a very wide line end to try and sweep it back. And as the clock goes to 0, right now, Giles is past there. Shucksmith, a brilliant move, but he's made some great progress since his days of battling with Max Dean. So he's cut through the field where others have lost out. But we are on to the final lap, ladies and gentlemen. The white flag has waved as that goes round in the back for Raz Harper. It spins around for Raz Harper. That summarises his day today in a single moment. Not quite going forward, going sideways and backwards. And unfortunately for the 312 driver, it's just not been a happy day whatsoever at Fuji. But sometimes that's the way it goes. But as he brings himself back up to speed, well, that battle for third place in club definitely has gone the way of Shucksmith. As meanwhile, we do look back up to the fight between Walker and Woodgate, and Walker has got that gap on Woodgate by 1.4 seconds. So I think he's going to be quite safe. He chased after Leon Seeley, who you can see just in front. And, well, Leon Seeley right now, a little bit of traffic in front of him, but the Samantha Town Racing driver, I think, will be feeling relatively safe. Nils Balkage, he's your pro leader. He has a 2-second gap to Seeley and is maintaining that gap quite confidently. But as he heads in towards the final sector, this man is about to clear it. And we are going to see history here today, ladies and gentlemen, because he makes his way out of the final quarter for Luke van Gertel. He started 13th and 2nd in the interclass. But as he makes his way down the straight, he weaves his way down. He's celebrated here. The checker flag awaits him because it's not just an inter-win for Luke van Gertel. It is the overall win. He is the Rainmeister in the Japanese circuit Fuji. And, well, in the end, he takes the win by a staggering margin for MJK Sim Racing. Nils Balkagen makes his way up the hill shortly. We have got the battle between Jones and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis raging on as Milton Tomlinson-Dennis dives up the inside of Jones in towards turn 13, but it began before that. But we will have to leave that behind, ladies and gentlemen, because for Nils Balkaga, it may not be the overall win, but it is the pro win and second place overall. His first win of the season, and a well-earned one at that for the German driver, head of Leon Seeley, who'll be runner-up in pro just ahead of Charlie Walker. He holds off to line, who completes what will be the pro podium. Ben Woodgate takes 5th, and then Bobby Moss, how about this? 6th overall, 2nd in the interclass, 2nd best to Luke van Gertel, and a surprise element to this race. The SimRacing Collective Esports header Leighton Austin and Jared Love. It all went wrong at the start, but he's come back strong and finishes 3rd in the interclass, just ahead of Richard Simnor, and then Andy Jones and Nicholas Carlson will behind, and Philip Harris, as they all connect together down the straight. But Philip Harris, he finishes well behind that, and he takes the club win. Well done to the Euro Titans endurance driver. His first club win of the season, and a well-deserved one at that. He was in a class of his own. Mark Colocott comes down behind Milton Tomlinson-Dennis to take 14th. Brandon Dyer will be 15th ahead of Daniel Page. They cross the line together. And you've got a bit of way to go. And in fact, we have already had a club field come through a lap down. And Christopher Petty was your runner-up in club, head of Ashley Shucksmith, who round off the podium. But we still got a couple of drivers to head to the finish, as Elliot Cawte has picked up a black flag, and he will be demoted to the back of the lead lap finishing field. So he'll finish behind Cardozo. And we still got a couple of drivers to finish their final laps. Oh my goodness, there's cars into the barriers there. That's lap down cars. That's Denny Ploger. And also, I believe Steve Kershaw. They've had a coming together right at the very end, where Stuart Cardozo comes home in 22nd place. That's a car reversing across the road in the rear of the picture. My good Lord. And in the end, he comes back on the road. He's trying to get turned around. I think Kershaw, as he gets it turned around, I don't think he realises some drivers are still trying to finish. Although, to be fair, I wouldn't be able to add it all together because of the fact that several drivers 2 laps down, some 1 lap down. And, well, Kershaw then come back across. And I get the feeling that that's going to go to Stewards after that one, because we saw a similar incident in the GTEs last week. And, well, the driver who did that was heavily penalised. But to be fair, they were involved in a multi-car collision as a result of it. But I think Kershaw's definitely going to get a warning over that one. And, well, Arno Prug comes across the line. He finishes 35th. He will be your last finisher of this race based on taking the checker flag, albeit he will be 30th there, well ahead of a couple other drivers, taking 8th place in club. Goodness me, ladies and gents. So quite the crazy end to this race. A crazy race on the whole. But we need to come back to the battle between what was Andy Jones and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. Here we go back in time. This was on lap 33. Now, the checker flag was out, and Tomlinson-Dennis had got to the inside of Jones in towards the hairpin, and was elbows out between these two, and Tomlinson-Dennis fighting hard. Nicholas Carlson there trying to squeeze and make it 3 wide. That was never going to happen. Now, Jones on the outside here, 13. Held it, just kept his nose in there coming out in the next bend. Well done for Jones for doing that. and up into the braking zone they went, and Tomlinson-Dennis lost the rear in towards turn 15, so Jones in the end put him under pressure and got him to make a mistake, but Tomlinson-Dennis fighting it hard there, and Jones, well, holding on to what was an absolutely brilliant third place in the Pro class, although Richard Simnor taking a bit of a breather as they drag race their way towards the line with Jared Love in the mix of this, and also John Butler a lap down, you can see, and Eddie Theobald, who he was chasing at the time, but he wasn't quite able to get closer to. In fact, Butler finished ahead of Theobald, so Theobald was a lap back on him, I do believe. That's how they all finished. But with that, we make our way back to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, and we take a look at the race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we can see, after pure pandemonium here today for round number 4 in the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 12, you've been tuning into the Superstar Split here for the Fuji International Speedway. In the wet weather, we have seen Luke Van Gertel take victory, not just in the interclass, but overall for MJK Sim Racing, and I believe it is the first time in this series we have ever seen a non-top tier class driver take a 1 hour feature race win. Luke Van Gertel there with an incredible victory. The Dutchman was unstoppable, and we're in the end taking that win by almost 30 seconds over Niels Balkaga. Balkaga was your runner-up overall by the MJK Sim Racing driver, but your pro winner, and did very well there, was in a bit of a class of his own versus pro peers, with Leon Seeley fighting through to second place in class, third overall. The Samantha Tam Racing driver was then followed up by Charlie Walker as hot on his heels right at the end, a tenth or two separating them at the finish line, and the relentless driver definitely was relentless in his pursuit today and earned a third place spot on the pro podium. Ben Woodgate took fifth, not quite comfortable with the wet conditions compared to some of his rivals, but fought hard for Inter-Racing team, and Bobby Moss through to sixth place then for the SimRacing Collective Esports, second place in the interclass, and he'll be very proud of that. Leighton Austin taking seventh there for relentless racing, and couldn't quite come back at Moss, who managed to make the pass on him late on, and Jared Love completing at the interpodium with an 8th place finish, and well, to be fair, dug in deep, and it wasn't about how he started today, it was about how he ended, and he's ended with a podium. The DDK with RaceStatBot.com driver will take the points from that. There's Richard Simnor in 9th place there for DCW Racing Blue, ahead of his teammate of Andy Jones, with the best of rest position going to Nicholas Carlson in 11th place there, 4th in Inter for Beowulf Racing Team. Philip Harris, the club winner in a postcode of his own in terms of his class, surviving the conditions there for Euro Tyson Endurance and getting it absolutely spot on for 12th, with Milton Tomlinson-Dennis 13th there with the late incident sending him down the order. And with the Swamp Racing drivers followed up by Mark Collicott for DCW Racing Blue and Brandon Dyer for Altitude 3M Esports to complete the top 15. Outside the top 15, it was Daniel Page in 16th ahead of Chris Cole, with Villa Katonen, Bradley Setters and Sam Hockley round off your top 20, and Hockley having a relatively quiet but consistent race and getting quite close to Katonen right towards the very end. We did see outside the top 20, 21st, it was Schubert Cardozo for Inter Racing Team, and he was the best part there, 25 seconds ahead of Elliot Cawte for DDK with RaceStatBot.com, and then we did see a lap down there, Christopher Petty, and well, unfortunately, for Petty, wasn't quite able to finish on the lead lap, and we weren't able to celebrate his huge achievement because it's his best results of the season, and it is second place in the club class. Well done to the privateer, and also what a battle through the field for Ashley Shucksmith, finally getting to grips with the wet conditions. 20 minutes to go in the race, and he rounded off the club podium there, 24th overall. Jack Giles took 25th for Euro Titans Endurance ahead of Raz Harper, with the DDK with RaceStatBot.com driver finishing ahead of Mikhail Abasek, but it was a frustrating day for him as it was for Abasek, and Adam Smith, Alfred Kirsten, and Jordan Butler completed your top 30. We then did see in 31st Brad Pickett ahead of Eddie Theobald, with Rob Gregg and Stephen Kershaw and Arno Prague completing the run to 35th, and with it the lap down drivers, because it was 2 laps down to Denny Ploger as it was to James Fraser and Dwayne Hoffman. Ashley Koopman finished 5 laps down the end in 39th for Relentless Racing. He'll be your last classified finisher, and we did see non-finishers classified for Max Dean, as we did also there for Adrian Howard, Martin Kenyon, Carl Roy, Steve Hughes, Benjamin Massey, Thomas Weston, and Ross Young. But it's to the classes we go, because this is where the points are paid and made. And as we can see in Pro, Niels Balkaga taking his first Pro win of the season for the privateer outfit of NJB Performance. And very good to see him back up there once again. And it has been the best part in terms of series brought to you by SimRacing International. It has been the best part of 2 years since he has last taken a win in one of our series. If my memory serves me correctly, that would be in the UK SimRacing GT3 Championship all the way back in Season 11. Leon Seeley, your run-up in Pro for Samantha Town Racing, and well, today getting the upper hand of many in the field and being able to come out of the shadow of his teammate Milton Tomlinson-Dennis and take his own stardom on the podium, head of Charlie Walker, who was only 2 tenths behind, and the Relentless Racing driver earning the podium, but he wanted plenty more. Ben Woodgate, 2.3 seconds behind of the podium, and the Inter-Racing team driver struggling with the conditions towards the end, but he was ahead of Leighton Austin, who was 10 seconds behind for Relentless Racing. That was your top 5, with Richard Simnor and Andy Jones of DCW Racing Blue just behind and fighting each other furiously at the end of the race, and then Milton Tomlinson-Dennis with that late spin spin added to the 3 from before. 8th place in the end for the Samantha Tan Racing driver, and his run of victories does come to a stop, but still his earning of points does not stop. Brandon Dine, 9th there for the Altitude 3M Esports team. That huge instant early on cost him dear, but he was ahead of Daniel Page at the finish line with the Daniel Newman, a racing red driver, not quite getting things to click together today. Chris Cole was best dressed in a length ahead of Bradley Setters, and then we did see Shubert Cardozo and Elliot Cawte completing the top 14, and all of those on the lead lap. It was a lap down to Raz Harper having a nightmare day in the office, and Ashley Coutland was your final finishers classified 5 laps down. Benjamin Massey, meanwhile, your sole retiring pro, in at 17th. They will take no points in this one. Then to the interclass we do go, and as we can see here in the second R classes, Luke Van Gertel, 43 seconds clear. Not quite the degree of Fotis Katios perhaps in the UK Sim Racing Series, but definitely delivering today for MJK Sim Racing, and showing here at Fuji he was absolutely unstoppable. But we must also give a shout out to Bobby Moss, who showed as time went on that he was also very smart and clever in the wet, and the Sim Racing Collective Esports driver was runner-up ahead of Jared Love by the best part of 9 seconds, who ran off the podium there for DDK with Race Stat Bot. And then did see Nicholas Carlson fall for Beowulf Racing Team, only a second behind at the close, but he was the best part of 15 seconds ahead of Mark Collicott for DCW Racing Blue. Villa Katonen was 6th for Beowulf Racing Team, and a frustrating day today. Things did not go right at all, and Sam Hockley was not too far behind in 7th for Privateer, and it was a lap down to Mikhail Abasek with his car in pieces in the opening 5 minutes, but they got it back together and got him some good points at Inox Motorsport, head of Adam Smith for Eurotitans Endurance, and Simstrap by Glass Tech Racing's Alfred Kirstein, who completed your top 10. It was a lap down as well for Brad Pickett, as it was for Stephen Kershaw, and it was sadly non-finishes as classified for Adrian Howard, Martin Kenyon, Carl Roy, Thomas Weston, and Ross Young. Then to the club class we go, the last of our classes, but by no means lesser of the classes. And we saw Philip Harris today, the only club driver to finish on the lead lap, and the Eurotitans Endurance driver was absolutely in control in the changing conditions. Christopher Petty put on a brilliant performance of his own to be the top of the rest, taking second there ahead of Ashley Shucksmith, who fought his way through after spending a good portion of the race battling with Max Dean. Difference of fortunes there between those two drivers. Jack Giles took full place for Eurotitans Endurance, just missing out on the podium. He was comfortably ahead of Jordan Butler for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, and Eddie Theobald was a bit further behind in 6th. Rob Gregg and Arno Prague complete those who were on the lap down in the club class, and it was 2 laps down there to Prague's teammate for MJK Sim Racing of Denny Ploger, with James Fraser completing the top 10 for Moonshine's Racing Club, and then Dwayne Hoffman's best of the rest in 11th place and the last finisher for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, with non-finishes for Max Dean and Steve Hughes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a rundown of the provisional finishing positions, but of course I suspect there will be some stewards' inquiries with regards to this one, because there were a few big shunts and incidents, but still, we won't dwell on those. What we are going to do is we're going to step away for approximately 5 minutes, and when we do come back, it'll be time for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers, and I'm sure they've all got plenty to say, and we've got plenty of time to hear what they've got to say, as we do just briefly take a step away. And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener as Sardply gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson-Dennis immediately go on the attack into the braking zone. 1 drive into the grass already, that's Mikey Story, but 3 wide they come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2. I think the Altitude 3M Esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1, and as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3, and Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there in 3 to the inside of 4 then, and Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the two of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the two Ford, for the Ford and the Corvette, 2 Americans I should say. And
with those 2 Evo drivers in front of them, they're just, they're realistically in a completely different race. They're just a barrier up towards the likes of Rubino and Wendell. Oh, there's Rubino going off the road, and here comes James Bostock, past 1, past 2. This is a great little move from James.
Oh, and look behind him as well. Hardiak, up high, he decides to come back down low. But Denny Plurger has really lost a lot of ground here. He's lost 7 places since the start of this race in that green Porsche. It is, but look at this for the lead. Hammond wants it. He's gone back down the inside. He got off the brakes again to let the car down the inside of Rob Mackay. And you said Rob was going to be clinging on at the front. And now he's clinging on to second. Great move by Lewis Hammond. Really good committed stuff. And look, down the inside, Richard White. He wants a piece of this in the Porsche. He's got James Bostock.
And it's lights out and away we go here as Mirko Bortolotti goes exactly on the green, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Martin Statman side by side with him, but look behind, Tim Perry under pressure, Miguel Leon immediately as the Enosis Esports driver tries to put the pressure on. Further back, we've got 3, 4 wide, they're all in the crush as they come through the opening bay. Look back for the rear of your second place runner, Statman, and Statman right now for the Gazix Racing team. What he's trying to do here, I think now, is just hold on to second, and if needed, he may have to act as a bit of a buffer and perhaps sacrifice a little bit of his race to the race leader here, although Bortolotti, to be fair, I think might be holding some pace back, but here comes Lux in the tow, in towards what we roller coaster they come with the Virginian corkscrew. It's left into right very quickly here as they both make the way, and it's too wide on entry, but Lux gets ahead. It's up into second now, as it will be Martin Statman falling down to third, but Callum Lux does clear another one, and now only one car is between him and an opportunity of victory here, which is Perry going to make the move, or I'm going to have to make the move for him? Well, there's your answer. Perry's going to go on the inside here of Dean into the braking zone. Edwards gets to watch it from the popcorn seat view. Perry there being too wide on exit. Dean's going to try and hang around the outside. Does Edwards think about going up the inside as well? He gets himself ready for it in case there's contact, but there's not. Perry there being fair. Dean tucks back in behind. Lovely move there from Tim Perry. And I think meanwhile Beardsworth will hope they don't get close up in time as Beardsworth's going to look up the inside. He goes all in, and it's from very far back. He gets it stopped, however, and Beardsworth there nails the move, but Tillerson's going to come back at him up the hill. Does he go in on the brakes here? This is bold to do it on the inside. No, he does not. And Brian Beardsworth at the end, he gets involved. He goes out wide at turn number 6. Tillerson's going to be too wide with him, but too wide they're going to turn 7. Tillerson goes to the switchback there. 9 is no way through, and in the end they come down towards turn number 8. Well, there Tillerson backs off. He lets Hutchinson go around the outside, but is it the right call? Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time to kick off our post-round interviews. And as our drivers have definitely had a very busy day today, no doubt about it, and they've had to work very hard when it comes to these performances, well, we do have what is a couple of interviews lined up, but I suspect they're all just taking a bit of a rest and respite at the moment, and we'll probably get a few more interviews very soon. But we are going to be started off with none other than what will be Jared Love, as he now does join me in the interview room. And without further ado, here he comes, ladies and gentlemen, as he joins me now. Good evening to you, Jared, and well, what a day you've had. At one point, it all seemed to be lost and a chance of a podium was not there, but you fought your way back up through the order. I mean, it has been a tough day at Fuji, has it not?
Yeah, it started yesterday when the Mustang got murdered in the BOP that they've released. So it was a case of, right, do we use the Mustang still, because that's what I practiced in. I've done a couple of laps and the weight transfer is just ruined. I couldn't brake well at all, so jumped back into the Ferrari, which I was using last season, very last minute. And then yeah, quality went well, I got lapping eventually as the track dried, and then Luke just he must have had a rocket fuel on his car. He was so fast in the wet there, flew past me in the first couple of laps and was just away. And then had a bit of contact with one of the pro drivers just coming into the last sector. Very, very minimal, but how wet it was and how slippy that corner is anyway. That was me. Spun round, lost a few places, and from there it was just damage limitation, and very lucky that we got back up to the podium position.
Well, a bit of fortune there, and like you say, Luke van Gertel in a bit of a world of his own today. But interesting with regards to the car swap there in terms of going from the Ford Mustang to the Ferrari. But to be fair, go with Old Faithful in some respects. And talking a little bit about qualifying, we did see the rain arrive going in towards qualifying. It looked as though at first qualifying was quite a steady session, quite a bit of rain down on the circuit. But as we got to the final 8 minutes, suddenly the circuit was drying up at such a rapid rate, and it was a scramble.
Yeah, I thought it would dry up. I didn't think it would get that dry at the end. In terms of it was, the pole lap was probably a second or so off, purely dry times. It was a bit of a strange one. I had 2 laps that I set, which there was no off tracks or anything, but they didn't count for some reason. I don't know why. One in the dry, one in the wet. So I was all the way down in sort of 20th or something up until I got the the final lap in, which everyone was, setting blistering times with the ever drying track.
Well, definitely a bit of a tough one in qualifying, but still found some time out there, and you're able to actually bring yourself to pole position in the end. But going into the race, I mean, it looked quite safe for the opening couple of laps at least. I mean, it was busy out there, but you were able to keep it on the road, but it just looked as though Luke was absolutely flying by comparison. Were you shocked to see him charge past you?
Yeah, I knew he's quick. He was. I think that's 4 races in a row. To be fair, I've been on pole, which is interesting. But he's been second in, I think, 3 or 4 of them out of the 4 of them, and he just got really unlucky at Hockenheim when he got taken out. I don't know if he raced at Spa or he maybe didn't race last week, and I don't know what happened. But he's always been up there all season. He's just obviously today he's put everything together. So I expected him to be quick and be fighting me, hopefully towards the end. But he was just literally in a league of his own. Second a lap quicker. I won by about 40 seconds or so over P2, which is just stupendous considering we're in the tier below the pros as well.
Now, he had a bit of a stupendous result, but for yourself, it was all looking relatively smooth to begin with until lap number 5, things went a bit wrong.
Yeah, there was a big gaggle of pro cars in front. There was one of them at the front. There was maybe 4 or 5 ahead, and I don't know which one it was. I think it might have been Dyer in the Mustang, which I feel his pain. I'd learnt it in the wet and then tried to drive it post-update yesterday, and it was horrendous. So folk were getting backed up, and then the tiniest touch from whoever was behind me, in a blue car. I don't know if it was a Mustang or a Merc. There's a couple of them were up there in the pro class. I don't think it even registered as like a crash as such, but it was enough to send me spinning round and lost a couple of spots. But it could have been worse. There was no damage. I didn't end up at the back of the grid like I did last week at Mugello. So, yeah, try to get happy, positive thoughts out of it rather than being Mr. Negative all the time.
Well, you most certainly did, and those positive thoughts helped propel you forward. And we did say you made quite a good recovery drive out of it, fighting towards the podium. Did it change the way you planned to strategise this race? Because we did see the majority of the field, yourself included, pit as late as possible.
No, I didn't change it as much. I think I got an extra lap. Just obviously there was people that I probably had pace over in front of me, and it was just so hard to overtake in the wet, and I didn't want to make that risk. It was like, I'd rather finish 4th or 5th than have contact try to overtake somebody. So I saved an extra lap and went for the undercut. I think it was Brad Pickett that was a few seconds in front of me. He pitted really early, and then he was just gone from the timings chart. So I don't know if he's got an incident or he's got held up with traffic. I've got no idea what happened there. But the plan was to go as late as possible when he pit early and get an undercut, which who knows if I've got it, if he's been involved with Bogger or not, but that was certainly the plan.
Oh, I see. Well, appreciate your insights there with regards to the strategy and the plan. And after the pit stop, we did see you in a relatively safe 3rd place all the way to the end. Didn't look as though you could quite catch up to Bobby Moss, but at the same time as well, it looked as though the pressure from Nicholas Carlson wasn't going to really manifest. But you're still surrounded by pro drivers all the way to the end. Was the temptation to fight them a bit?
Not in front of me. If there was any behind me, potentially, because I could see Nicholas Carlson was quick. I think he made a few mistakes, and he overtook me at some point. We had a bit of a battle for a couple of laps and more near the start of the race, and I could see him just eking that gap back to me, whether that was raw pace or it was just me holding back that few percent to get the car home. But there was 2 or 3 pro cars between us. If they'd have caught, the plan would have been to ideally keep them behind as a buffer, but it wasn't really looking to fight anyone in front of me. As much as it's nice to beat some of the pro drivers, realistically, that's not who I'm up against in terms of any sort of title fight. It's more bragging rights than anything.
All fair play, and I think a very sensible approach then. In the end, rewarded with a 3rd place. I mean, it's not quite what is the wins, and it means that you do have 2 wins out of 4 races so far, so 50% hit rate, but the reality also being the fact that it means now you've got 3 podiums in 4 races, so you must still be feeling quite confident as the season goes on that you're doing pretty good so far.
Yeah, fairly confident it's going to hopefully continue that way, and it's just a case of getting the results. Might not win every race, that doesn't happen in racing, but consistent podiums, consistent top 5s, that's what's going to be the difference at the end of the season potentially. There's people like Van Gortel, like Kyle Roy, like Katonen, like Carlson that are always going to be right up there fighting, and it's just a case of outscoring them across the season rather than in single races.
Oh, fair play. And just a little side note, I don't know if you've noticed as well, until this round, it was an all-Scottish run of victories where you may have lost out at what was Magello. Carl Roy was able to pick up the piece. So you're a bit gutted that it's not just Scottish drivers who've taken wins in Inter.
Yes, yeah. Gutted, but I don't know where Luke's from. Is he Dutch, potentially?
He is.
I'll not say anything against the English, but I'm glad it's maybe not an English driver this one.
Oh, fair play. Well, looking ahead to next time, we do unfortunately make our way to England for the Garden of England circuit that is the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. What's your plan for that round?
I don't want to tempt fate, but it's my favourite track. I like all the old British tracks. You've got to be so precise. They're narrow. There's just gravel traps. There's no runoff, so I love them. They're great for racing. I think qualifying is going to be very interesting around Brands Hatch. You know, if there's 45, 50 people on track at once try to qualify in a 1 minute 21, 1 minute 22 lap in a GT3, it's going to get tight. Finding that space is going to be very, very tough, and it just puts the pressure on that when you've got that space, you really need to nail the lap rather than going, oh, I've got 45 minutes, because you might not get 45 minutes with how busy the track's going to be.
Oh, really fair play, and we look forward to seeing whether you can find that a bit of space when we do go racing at Brands Hatch, and particularly in qualifying in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Yeah, shout out to the wife. She's always very, very good at her taking control of Thursday nights with the 2 kids and giving me that couple hours just to make sure I can race. Shout out to everyone at SRI, organising league, yourself, the admins that do all the stewarding and put the scores up and just organise everything. And shout out to the boys at DDK as well. It's not been a great week for us this week, but we're going to bounce back. We'll be back up there. We'll fighting hopefully for the team championship.
Well, we definitely look forward to the fight back from yourself and the DDK with Race That Bot Racing Crew and next time out at Brands Hatch. But Jared, it's been a blast having you join me, and whilst it may not be a win, it's definitely a well-earned podium, and we'll see where you can return to the top step in a week's time. But until then, thank you for your time and have a lovely rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul. See you later.
So here and there from a bit of a mixed emotions, Jared Love. On the one hand, very happy to be on pole in qualifying and able to put things together, but respecting the fact that in the shock or the surprise, if you will, Luke van Gertel just being absolutely rapid. Also interesting in his thoughts there about the fact that he switched from the Ford Mustang to the Ferrari and realising that the Ford Mustang, its ability in the wet has been severely compromised as a result of the balance performance update that arrived yesterday, and therefore he's gone back to his old faithful in the form of the Ferrari, and well, that faith was definitely well placed. Unfortunately, the instant that he did experience early on in the race, after being passed by Van Gertel, made his way on past, and in the end had to fight his way back up the orders. We do see him chasing after Ross Young there for position. But to be fair to Jared, kept his positive spirit, and that was the interesting thing about what we were saying there. Didn't let the negative emotions overtake him, and I think that's been his biggest change since the previous season. He really is now coming out fighting hard here and realising it's not about how you start the race, it's how you end it. And saying there as well, this championship's not going to be won by individual wins. It'll be won through consistent results, and that's what he's targeting, and he's looking forward to his favourite circuit of the United Kingdom, that's Brands Hatch, in a week's time, and we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do in the Garden of England and see where he can return to winning ways. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now get ready for our second interview. We'll be back very shortly. And so now, joining me in the interview room, ladies and gentlemen, as we head to the pro class, it is your pro winner for today. It is none other than Niels Balkhage. Niels, good evening to you. Your first pro win. Not quite your first overall win, but still, the pro win is what matters most. You get the 100 points. How does that sound to you?
Good evening, Paul. Yeah, it sounds wonderful to me because I didn't think about it the whole evening. I did the DTM race first, and then I joined 10 minutes to go in the qualifying and catch P1. Yeah, and then the race. I don't know where the rain line is or was, or I just looked and yeah, I won the race. I not overall, like you said, but pro class. I don't matter what Luke has in his tank. He was unstoppable.
Well, absolutely incredible. And the fact that you've gone straight from racing in the iRacing DTM series straight into this, I mean, it shows you are a man of many talents. And well, one of those talents was putting your car on pole position. Your first pole position of the season. Tell us a little bit about qualifying, because it was a wet session to begin with. And as we just spoke with Jared Love, it started to dry in the final 10 minutes, and it dried extremely quickly, and you perfected it.
Yeah, just like I said, I joined very late on the server, and I saw very fast that there is a dry line, but I try first the wet tires, but immediately go back to the pits and put on the dries, and every lap the car goes faster, the time goes down. So and I was really lucky with the traffic. The guys that came out of pits looked around, see me. Yeah, it's all like we say in Germany, it's all played together.
Well, everyone definitely was a bit compliant, and you were given the space there to deliver that incredible pole lap. And as we did go racing, I mean, at the start of the race, you had a really good start, held on to the top spot, and then suddenly we have Luke van Goertel just storm past you. I mean, were you looking over your shoulder thinking to yourself, hold up, what's he doing? He's an Inter driver. How's he getting this far? How's he that quick?
Yeah, my first thought when I saw Luke coming, my first thought, never. He had only just a 2.5k. Never. I saw that he is not in the pro class, and after Milton has spun, I did nothing. I let him go. Suddenly, oh, sorry, he passed me in the last corner, and then Milton was spun. Yeah, but I'm a realistic driver. When I see I have no chance, when somebody is 1 second, 1.5 second faster than me in the rain, I let them go. But I don't want to lose time because of a battle that make no sense.
Oh, that's definitely a sensible approach, Tate. No doubt about it. Fight with those who you need to fight with. Don't fight those who you don't need to fight. And for the remainder of the race, whilst we did see you, like you mentioned, lose out to Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, who had his spin, after that, it seems like it was a bit of a lonely race for yourself, and you were really managing those conditions well. I mean, did you feel as though there was a risk of being caught, or was it just, you know what, this is easy, I'll just bring it home as the win?
I was so focused on my driving because I don't know where's the rain line, where's the rain on the track. I forgot the English word for this for the rain on the track. So yeah, I was focused on myself, and in every lap I look. I really look one time in the relative or in the standings, and I see, okay, I was faster, okay, I was not faster, but the pace is good. So I was, like I say, sorry for my bad English.
No worries at all.
Yeah, I was so focused on myself to hold the car on the track. So that's that's the words I searched. Yeah, and that at the end P1 in the pro class, unbelievable. I never imagined that.
Well, a brilliant result and a very well-deserved win. And with this result, it does mean you move a lot closer to the top of the championship. Next time out, we make our way to Brands Hatch for a sunny day in the Garden of England. How are you feeling for that?
I really looking forward to Brands Hatch. I'm a guy. I love the old the real old racetracks, not the new ones. The old they have a special feeling when you drive, because one mistake you are you're out. You're on the grass, smashed into the wall. So I really like that, and I cannot wait to go on Brexit with the Lamborghini.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we can't wait to see you take on Brands Hatch in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, is there anyone that you would like to give a mention or a shout out to on the broadcast?
Oh, first of all, congrats to Luke. Unbelievable race, and all the other podium guys in pro int and AM class. It was a hard race, and also to Rob Gregg, who apologized to me for the contact after in the last 5 minutes where I was thought my race is gone. Yeah, I accept. Of course, I accept your apology. Yeah, shout out to my teammates on NJB Performance. And yeah, see you guys next week and Brexit.
We will do, Nils, but until then, thank you very much for joining me in the interview room. And what I'd like to say, to put it in German, Auf Wiedersehen and gute Nacht, meine Freund.
Vielen Dank. Dir auch eine gute Nacht.
Take care.
Very good. Very good.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the German I know there. So I've used all my German up in one go with Nils, but still fantastic to talk to him there and just saying goodbye and have a great evening. And I'll tell you one thing, he absolutely had a brilliant day today, no doubt about it. And I do love his honesty with the way he's been talking about this result and how everything's clicked together. And well, in the end, knew he couldn't quite keep up with none other than Luke van Goertel, so had to let him go. But in doing so, well, prioritised the bigger picture, which was of that pro win. Also mentioned there the fact that he stayed out of trouble all the way through to the very end of the race, and in avoiding that trouble, well, he was able to make sure he didn't spin, unlike Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, and we focused on everything in front. But crazy to think he comes straight from the DTM series in iRacing that kicked off today, went straight into this round of racing with limited time available in qualifying as well, clicked it all together. But sometimes when you're in a rush, your mind just focuses, and that's exactly what Nils Buckhage has been able to do. And he's looking forward to Brands Hatch. He loves the old school British circuits, particularly the fact the walls always loom large, and therefore you literally are going through the situation of maximum risk and maximum reward. And something tells me that Lamborghini of his may be looking very quick next time out. But we'll have to wait and see as we now get ready, ladies and gentlemen, for our next interview. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to our third interview, and it's none other than Bobby Moss, who joins me in the interview room. Bobby, good evening to you, and well, what a day for yourself. Perhaps not the surprise result, unlike Luke van Goertel absolutely roaring away, but still for yourself a very impressive one, and in your own right, I think surprising many drivers of the fact taking second place in Inter. You must be very proud of that.
Yeah, surprised myself, Paul, as well. It's bloody wet out there.
Oh,
but zero practice in the wet. So I was very pleased. B2.
Oh, fair play. I mean, the fact you had zero practice in the wet, and then perhaps breaking it down a little bit further. So in qualifying, the rain came obviously before we made our way into, well, as the qualifying got underway, but the circuit started to dry very quickly. Where did you find yourself in all of that, given your limited wet weather practice?
Well, I wasn't looking too hot in the when it was raining, but as it started drying up, I kept putting the P1 times in, and I just timed it a bit wrong, so I ended up, I don't know exactly where I was, P10, something like that. I think if I'd have gone out like 60 seconds later, I would have been like the last one round, I'd have been right near the top. But yes, qualifying was difficult, and then the start of the race was horrible, really horrible. You could hardly see anything. Yeah, grim. Hardly see anything. So many cars around you, spray everywhere, people spinning everywhere. It was real tough.
Well, to be fair, it might have been the difference of 60 seconds in qualifying that separated you from 4th in class and 15th overall versus a potential pole. But when we did go racing, obviously a wet surface once again, and you seemed quite settled into it over the whole distance. I mean, how did you adjust to the conditions then, given the wet weather? Was it just take it easy and see how it comes and build up the speed?
Yeah, exactly that, Paul. There's so many people try and be really aggressive, like well, at the start of every race, but especially like in the wet, and I don't really understand why, because it's really difficult. So I just take my time, see what happens around me, and then as soon as you've got a bit of space around you, you can start putting your foot down, which seemed to work for me today. So I ended up, I think I was P2 in the end, right? So I was really pleased with that.
Oh, definitely. You were our 2nd place finish in the interclass and staying out of trouble every step of the way. Although, speaking of staying out of trouble, we did see you in several moments having to weave your way in and out of what was fellow pro drivers and even the occasional club driver getting involved. I mean, how did you balance that? Because you definitely had a lot more pace than several of the pros, but like you say, you didn't want to get caught up and make mistakes. How did you gauge, right, I need to pass this guy versus I should just sit behind this other driver?
Yeah, just being patient. I'd only try and overtake someone if I knew like I really had a good run out of like the last corner or something like that, or they were really slow out of 3 or 4 or whatever. Because like you say, as P2 there in class, so there's no point me fighting for 7th overall, 9th overall, or anything like that if it's not actually going to gain me anything in my division. So yeah, just picking and choosing my battles really, and. Well, a lot of the time just waiting, because I must have seen 5 or 6 people just turn it around in front of me anyway. So just take my time, be patient, manage my pace, save a bit of fuel while I'm waiting around, and say if I get a good run out of one of the corners, then that's when I'll go for it. Not to give my strategy away for any of the races, of course.
Of course not, but still, you got it absolutely spot on. And with regards to your actual pit stop strategy, we did see you come in quite early compared to a lot of drivers. What prompted that? Because we saw most in the top 20 stay out literally until they ran out of fuel or until it seemed as though the rain came back. But you came in when the rain had gone.
Yeah, I picked the wrong setup, so I didn't have enough fuel. But I think it actually worked out in that I got, just as the track was getting really dry, I got to come in and cool my tyres off, whereas other people were having to run in a lot dry conditions. So I got to cool my tyres off for a little bit, and then I found that I had like pretty good pace compared to everyone's lap times around me. So yeah, it seemed to work out, picking the wrong setup. So maybe I'll do that next wet race as well.
Well, to be fair, picking the wrong setup definitely seemed to work out like you say. You were very quick over both stints, and towards the end, taking 2nd place in class, and with it, I believe that makes it your 1st podium of the season. Indeed, it does in the interclass. I mean, surely you've got to feel now that, well, no, this is your 2nd podium of the season. It's back-to-back 2nd places. You've got to be thinking to yourself...
I was going to have to jump in and correct you there, Paul.
Made sure. Well, tiredness is getting to me, but I'm making sure not to make those mistakes. 2 2nd places then. When's the win going to come? Is it going to come at Brands Hatch?
I don't really know Brands Hatch, so I'm not sure about that, but it's got to come pretty soon if I'm going to try and compete for the championship. Yeah, 2 2nd places. I outclassed for the win in both of them, like far and away. I mean, Luke today was about an hour up the road, wasn't he? But yeah, hopefully the win's coming soon. Brands Hatch, I'm not sure, but I'm sure I'll get a victory or 2 by the end of the season. See if we can win the league overall.
Well, it may not be a victory that's coming at Brands Hatch then, but what are you expecting to achieve at Brands?
If I can get another podium again, I'd be very happy. If I can keep getting P2, P3, I can start nibbling away at people. So see what happens from there. So I'm sure some wins will come eventually, but if I can get a podium at Brands Hatch, I'm very pleased.
Oh, fair play. We look forward to seeing you chase that podium at Brands Hatch. But just before we do let you go, I have to ask, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to on the broadcast?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to Paul Walsh, the best commentator going. The TSRC Esports boys, thank you for having me. And my beautiful wife and son, who I can't wait to come home. They're in Japan for the next 2 weeks.
Well, you never know. You might pick him up going away from the circuit back home, as you say. But still, Bobby, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview, and appreciate the compliment as well. Congratulations today on what was a brilliant drive for second place, even with limited wet weather practice. We look forward to seeing you at Brands Hatch and seeing whether you can continue the podium streak. But until then, have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thanks, Paul. Take care of yourself, mate. Cheers.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, hearing from a very happy Bobby Ross there, and well, I do appreciate the fact that he was going to correct me with regards to those podium finishes, but we managed to correct ourselves just in the nick of time. But less about me, more about him, and well, the TSRC esports driver proving today that sometimes you just got to stay out of trouble and keep your head down, much like Nils Balkaga in the Pro Class for his win. Well, for Moss, it wasn't quite a win in Interclass. It was second best, as you mentioned there. Luke van Goertel was an hour up the road, proverbially speaking, but the point being that he was able to deliver a very fine result. Also mentioned the whole balancing act of making sure only to fight with the pros that he felt he could get good corner exits on to be able to beat them to the next braking zone, and that's how he worked his way forward. Although by accident he pitted early because he had the wrong setup on the car, he had a much lighter car in terms of the fuel, but perhaps that actually aided him, as he said there, because he felt very happy on both stints and the car felt quick. And we have heard a couple of drivers in previous interviews say that they don't always take all the fuel they need at the start of the race because they want a lighter car to be able to go on the attack, and perhaps that worked out for the TSRC driver. And also mentioned there, he's targeting wins, not at Brands Hatch. He doesn't think he'll come there, but he is aiming for a couple of this season because he's definitely setting his sights on the crown for the Interclass. So one to watch out for Bobby Moss, and we look forward to seeing what he can do in the Garden of England next time out. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more interview to come this evening, and we'll be back very shortly for our final interview of the night. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come now to our final interview in the Interclass, and joining me in the interview room is none other than Mikhail Abasek. Mikhail, good evening to you. What a tough day it's been for yourself. I mean, your Ferrari at one point was in several pieces. I mean, I think they're still picking up the debris on the circuit, but you didn't give up, and you took 8th place in the Interclass. How have you left Japan feeling?
Yeah, good evening to you and the rest of the viewers. Yeah, I mean, really unfortunate. I also had incidents, previous races, didn't finish the entire race. So I was really hoping this race I could do first few laps clean without any incidents, but as my luck has it, probably it's not meant for me. But yeah, I mean, I was on the edge of actually retire from the race, but I told to myself, what, I mean, if it's raining, I mean, the other guys is gonna probably spin out as well, and I can gain some places back, and that's what probably happened. So I'm happy that I didn't quit.
Well, it's a good thing you didn't quit because, like you say, in the end, you were rewarded with some points, and well, that never give up attitude always paying off. But before we talk about the race, let's talk a little bit about qualifying. 20th overall, 6th in class. We've asked other interviews, where did you find yourself in that qualifying session? Because, of course, it was about those final 10 minutes and a circuit that was getting very dry very quickly.
Yeah, I was pushing on the wet as much as I could. Wasn't going as planned, but yeah, I knew that the track is gonna dry up at some point before the end of qualifying. So me and Ben decided to do the dry session, dry tires. So it paid up. We gained places. Unfortunately, Ben did some incidents, so he couldn't qualify better. But yeah, I mean, I was really happy to gain so much positions.
Well, definitely gained a lot of positions in qualifying, and your teammate Benjamin Massey looked so good until he had a bit of a difficult end to his qualifying session. But into the race we went, and in the early stages, right in the thick of a lot of drivers out there, but it went wrong quite early. What happened?
Yeah, as I said, I mean, I was doing my best to survive the few first laps. Yeah, I mean, the guy in front, I think it was Weston, spun out. Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have time to avoid it. So yeah, I crashed into him. Then the guy behind me also spun out and crashed in my rear. So I was completely destroyed after that. Yeah, it was really little space to do anything. It was just meant to be to crash.
Well, like you say, sometimes you're just destined to have disaster, but you then carried on and started to make some steady progress. I mean, did you perhaps change up your strategy for the race? We knew the rain was going to come back, but did you change your pit stops because you'd already had to come in to do repair work to the car?
Well, didn't change much. Just tried to save some fuel. I was already saving due to rain, and because I had an incident before, I was really not pushing the car too much. Yeah, because of this, I could fill up less, so I could gain some there. But yeah, I mean the strategy remained the same all the time, apart from the crash.
Well, the strategy may have remained the same, and in the end, you were able to pick up those places. So an 8th place finish today, and with that 8th place, I do believe it means that it's not quite your best result of the season, but some points are still coming, and there's plenty more rounds to come. Next up, we head to Brands Hatch. How are you feeling for it?
Absolutely amazing. I mean, this is one of the, if not the most, my favorite track, actually. I did a lot of races there. So I'm really interested in what's gonna happen there. I think it's gonna be fine. I could do top 10, maybe top 5 there. I will try. But yeah, you never know.
Oh, we look forward to seeing you go for a top 5. I mean, it'd be great to see the Inox Motorsport blue Ferrari up there. And actually, one question I had to ask is, I believe we've had several different liveries on the car, but the blue theme here for the Ferrari, I mean, is it a livery that you've just decided to roll with? Because I think this is also a car change for yourself, is it?
Yeah, I changed from Merc. I wasn't feeling good with the long nose, so yeah, I decided to go to Ferrari. I feel it's quite more stable than Merc. But yeah, in the end, I had to do a livery for Ferrari. It was kind of in a rush because it was a last minute change. So it was actually from the previous livery, but just changed the colors and contrasts and stuff. So it looks more up to date to the current league and current team we're on.
Oh, fair play. I mean, you've done an absolutely brilliant job with that livery. It stands out, and I'm sure you're going to stand out with your results in the Ferrari as the season goes on. But just before we do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to on the broadcast?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you, the organizers, and also my teammates. Unfortunately, we are not a full team anymore here. Matthias had to actually withdraw from the league. But yeah, I mean, me and Ben, we are still soldiering on, and I think we are gonna push through the end. Yeah, that's the all I have to thank for.
Well, Mikhail, we have to give you a big thank you for joining me in the interview room. It's been great to hear from you. Even if you haven't had a great day, it's good to see you stay with it to the end, earn some points, and we look forward to seeing you take on Brands Hatch, and if you can make that top 5 in the Interclass a reality. But until then, have a wonderful rest of the evening, and we'll see you next round.
Thank you very much as well. Bye.
So hearing there from Mikhail Awasek, your Interclass driver, who in the end, well, a challenging day for the Inox Motorsport driver, and you can hear it in his voice there, whereby I think it's been exhausting for him in the thought that it all went so very wrong, and in the end he has put it together by staying out there and just making sure that he has not given up. Now, understandably, with that comes the mileage, which is that you're driving with the hope that other drivers are going to get it wrong. And several did get it wrong today. And in doing so, well, he was able to pick up 8th place in the Interclass. But he'll know that he needs to dig deeper. And at Brands Hatch, He loves the circuit, he considers it to be one of his favourites, and he feels as though he can perhaps chase down the top 5. So that's what we're looking forward to, and the switch from the Mercedes to the Ferrari may just suit him there. But I have to wait and see whether the shift from the long nose to the long tail is going to work out for him or not. But of course, the Inox Motorsport driver, much like his teammate Benjamin Massey, isn't going to give up until he's given it a good shot. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude our interviews for this evening, and let's give you a quick recap of who exactly we've spoken to. And well, we need to say a big thank you to all 4 of our interviews, who did include, firstly, in the Interclass, definitely plenty of Inter drivers who joined us in the interview today. Firstly, we spoke to DDK with RaceStatBot.com's Jared Love, your pole sitter in the class, 4th place finish in the end, succumbing to a spin early on, but to be fair, recovered well, and in the end took home a brilliant drive to what was, I believe, in fact, it was a 3rd place there. We do apologise for the slightly incorrect result being shown, but he was your pole sitter there and did everything he could in order to be able to make sure that he could extract the best possible result from adversity. But then we did speak to none other than Nils Balkage, and for Nils, it was one of those days where it definitely was a challenging one when it came to the fault of being passed by an Inter driver who seemed to be in a world of his own. But he also overcame the challenge of the conditions to make it pole position in the class and overall in qualifying, and then in the race was able to grind through to bring home a brilliant 2nd place, even when there was the little bit of a challenge of Milton Tomlinson-Dennis getting ahead, but it was only for a brief moment before Milton Tomlinson-Dennis had that spin, and Balkage in the end was able to come home for his first win for NJP Performance this season. Then we came back to the Interclass, speaking to Bobby Moss of the SimRacing Collective Esports, very pleased with his limited wet practice of being able to get to grips with the conditions and bring home 2nd place in Inter quite comfortably. But we then came to our final interview just now, Mikhail Abasek for Inox Motorsport, who in the end talking about the fact, after what was a decent qualifying session, it didn't quite work out in the race. An early instant definitely scuppered things, but he was able to bring it home in 8th place in the end and secure some valuable points. Well, a big thank you to all 4 of our drivers for their time in the interview room, and we look forward to plenty more interviews in the near future, and indeed the opportunity to praise their performances even more so. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you've enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know how you can get on the grid at SimRacing International, well, the best way to do so is join our official Discord, invite link at the bottom of your screen. And when you do, you get access to a whole variety of series that we run, including the following. Firstly, you've been tuning in today to it. It's the Thursday evening GT3 Championship, currently its 12th season, with our Masters and Superstar splits, and you've been tuning into the Superstars. Alternatively, if you're a Grand Touring fan, but you are more interested in the Grand Touring endurance machines of 1999 through to 2023, we've got you covered there on Friday evenings, because we still have our 2nd season of the GT Championship ongoing currently, and things are definitely on a tipping point. We've then got on Sundays, if you're a GT3 fan, but you can only race on the weekends, we have got the UK Sim Racing Sunday Showdown, currently in its 18th season. And indeed, that's a very interesting format for this season, with a revised point structure and plenty of race action going with it. But if you want something far more casual, perhaps you're looking for somewhere just to get used to a league racing format, perhaps you're a rookie in league racing, or even a professional who just wants to rehash their abilities to race well, we've got our practice league, which does run on Tuesday, Wednesdays and Saturdays, and the great thing about it is it's entirely free. So therefore, you've got free races per week if you don't want to pay to enter into any of our official championships. So there's plenty going on at SimRacing International, and we'd love for you to be a part of it, and all you need to do is join the official Discord to get on the grid. But at this moment, we'd also like to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include Carme Modern Technology, the GP2 Group, and lastly, but by no means least, Motorsport UK's esports division. A huge shout out to them for recognising us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community. We're very grateful for that recognition, and long may it continue throughout 2026 and beyond. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now look ahead to next time out, and after a rain-soaked day at Fuji, well, it's back to dry skies because we make our way to the United Kingdom next time out, and in round number 5 on Thursday the 30th of April 2026, we'll see our drivers make the way to the county of Kent for the short, sweet and very rapid Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Home annually to the season open, the GT World Challenge Europe Sprint Series is going to welcome our drivers. It's going to be a very busy circuit, and overtaking will be limited, and therefore we'll have to wait and see what exactly goes down. But what we can definitely tell you after what is a round at Fuji is that in the Pro class, a doorway has been opened to the top. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, after his floundering today, has lost the momentum he's been building up for the opening 3 rounds. Meanwhile, in the Interclass, well, Jared Love with a vital podium today, but knowing his rivals rivals are closing the distance will need to keep the momentum if he wants to hold on at the top. And meanwhile, in the interclass, it's been a brilliant win for Philip Harris, and what that has served to do is tighten things up between all of your leading drivers. But Harris in particular, a first win, we will now start to believe that a championship charge is possible, whereas other drivers such as Adam Lynch, Jack Giles and Ashley Shucksmith will all know the pressure is building. Come tune in next time live from the circuit side to see how the story continues. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, you've been tuned to the Superstar Split. We've been your host, SimRacing International, and I've been your commentator, Paul Walsh. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.